Chapter 168. Magic Beast. Ivan Pride 2. Defense. 300 plus 2200. Divided by 2 is equal to 1250. Defense split. It was Huahu who used its superpower at the critical moment. Defense split. It added its own 2200 points of defense to Ivan's 300 points of defense and split it equally, causing Ivan's defense value to explode from 300 points to 1250 points in an instant. Relying on the Anubis' 900 points of attack, it was impossible to break through Ivan's defense at this moment. Woof. The Anubis attack failed, and it immediately retreated. It lowered its body and let out a low growl. A trace of black gas flowed out of its eyes. URL. https://m. Vipcanshu. VIP Ivan's body emitted a faint white light. That was the manifestation of Huahu's superpower. It was just a few seconds of attack and defense. Dake didn't command at all. It was completely Ivan and Huahu's own judgment. Ivan gave up on defense and used Circle Pupil to block the final blow of the shell bird. Huahu casually threw a shield at it, blocking the Anubis sneak attack. Everything happened in a flash. The audience didn't even have time to react before the two magic guide elves made an extremely exciting joint battle. To use a phrase that was too lame, this was an exciting operation that was enough to be recorded in textbooks. But it wasn't over yet. Ivan took advantage of the gap when the Anubis retreated. He didn't take the opportunity to counterattack. Instead, he turned around and pounced on the Sphinx cat. Huahu's ability lasted for a very short time and had a very long cooldown. When Ivan forced the Sphinx back with a claw, the superpower radiance on its body had become very faint. Meow. The Sphinx let out an extremely unwilling roar, but its magic power had actually been depleted. From the time it used Shadow Step to lock Huahu to now being forced back, it had already been 2 rounds. Damn it. Sarah clenched her teeth. She wanted to eat Ibuchan. However, she still managed to grasp the situation at an extremely fast speed. The Anubis and the Sphinx cat's ultimate skills were on cooldown. Among them, the Anubis still had combat power, but the Sphinx cat had already reached the point where it would break with a touch. On the other hand, the magic guide elves on the opposite side. Huahu regained its ability to move. Ivan was at his peak. The situation was clearly not in her favor, but she still had hope. The shell bird in the air was only affected by the eye of the circle. Once it recovered, the life enchantment of the magic conducting ball, that only had 13 MP left, would not be able to withstand a single strike from it. Neither EV nor EV could reach high altitudes. As long as he could hold on until that moment. Sarah calmed down a little, and immediately ordered the Anubis to return to defend. From Dake's perspective, Kettle's movement speed is extremely slow, and it doesn't have any long-range attack capabilities. Ivan won't be able to take down the Anubis anytime soon. The only thing he can do now is to sacrifice and summon. But this Ivan is already a 2-star magical guiding sprite. 2 stars plus 3 stars equals 5 stars. Unless Dake still has a 5-star magic elven card in his hand, I'm still invincible. The exclamations outside the arena did not affect Sarah's train of thought. She was gradually becoming calmer. Dida. Sarah suddenly raised her head and looked at the opposite side that was 30 meters away. Dake Dimung, how are you going to break out of this situation? How to break out of this situation? While Sarah was thinking quickly, Dake was also calculating. He only had a total of 12 cards in his deck. In the preparation stage, he drew 5 cards. In the second round, he added 2 cards. That left him with 5 cards. What was the probability of drawing Bliss 3? In the third round, the answer was 2/5. 2/5 is already very high. 30's third round draw cards. Dake took out 2 new magic conducting cards from the deck and immediately checked them. Magic Bullet Spell. Bliss 3. I got it. A trace of obvious excitement flashed across his face. Dake suddenly raised Bliss 3 high up. This golden pink magic conducting card, after less than 4 seconds of summoning, suddenly released an extremely strong pink glow. The Bennu bird, which was flapping its wings in the air, had just shown signs of returning to normal when it was immediately mesmerized by the pink glow. Even the Anubis froze for a moment because of this. The students outside the arena stared at the pink glow that was actually not considered dazzling. The students from the School of Magic instinctively had an ominous premonition. The students from the aristocrat House of Aristocrats took it as a sign of a comeback. Only White Gouda suddenly grabbed Taboo Love in his hand. The way Date controlled Bliss 3. It was very similar to the way he controlled Taboo Love. It was just that the glow of Bliss 3 was more intense than his pink fog. The mesmerizing effect was more domineering. The difference was, Bliss 3 was not focused on mesmerizing. Therefore, after the glow faded, the magic conducting sprite that was affected by it would quickly regain its clarity. After sensing that the Anubis' eyes quickly returned to normal, White could not help but heave a sigh of relief. It's still different. Of course it was different. Originally, the leap from 1 star to 2 stars was enough to shock people. But at this time, Illusionary Beast, Ivan, not only did its star level and 3 measurements increase, its card surface, its form also underwent a drastic change under the illumination of the strong pink glow. How is this possible? Saraswati slammed her hand on the card table. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. The audience outside the arena had already held their breaths. In an instant, silence fell over the perimeter of Venue 1. Professor Cheong-si also looked at the changes in Ivan's form in astonishment. Illusionary beasts were essentially illusory beasts that did not have fixed forms. They were illusory and unfathomable. Before they were seen by people, their forms were uncertain. They could be cats, dogs, or even dragons. Every illusionary beast that people saw could take on a completely different form. But after it was refined into a magic-conducting sprite, during the process of creating the illusionary beast, the Archmage would have some understanding of it. The moment it was seen by the Archmage, it would forever be fixed in that form in the eyes of the Archmage. In Professor Cheong-si's knowledge, he had never heard of a fixed, illusionary beast being able to change again. The more he understood, the more inconceivable it was. Dake Dimming, without a doubt, broke this little bit of common sense and researched something that had never been done before. He's still in his first year. After the astonishment, he sighed in admiration. Professor Cheong-si was very gratified that this magic-conducting genius came from his academy. And in the arena, under the illumination of Bliss 3, the emblem of Bliss appeared on Ivan's forehead. Moonlight with a trace of pink mist was released from his forehead. His petite body rapidly changed in the light. From a height of 0.3 meters, it became 1 meter in the blink of an eye. His originally soft brown fur was quickly dyed with a layer of black. The ring pattern on his body emitted a pink glow. He was the agent of the moon that walked in the night, a charming sprite that symbolized bliss. The entire process seemed slow, but it was actually extremely fast. He raised his head, and the remaining light retracted back into his forehead. Moon Ivan enter. 4 seconds later, Dake pulled out Pride Eye, by a hair's breadth. As the dark golden ball of light entered Moon Ivan's body, this defiant finally didn't run out of the arena. Shadow Ball. A pitch-black ball emitting an evil aura instantly shattered the body of the Bennu bird. The scattered feathers turned into fragments of light in the intertwining line of sight. The Anubis protecting the blue magic-conducting ball showed a ferocious expression, but it could be seen from its constantly twitching hind legs. This was just a show of strength. On the platform, Sarah looked at the 6 cards in her hand, her breathing unstable. Immediately after, the Anubis was torn apart by the galloping Moon Ivan's claws. The blue magic-conducting ball was caught unawares by its claws and fangs. Saraswati didn't make any more fearless struggles. 1-0-0-0-0. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimming. Boom. The sound returned in an instant. The Noble Academy students outside the arena suddenly shouted, rushing to the red platform as if they were welcoming a hero. Even though there were still some elements that they didn't understand, this duel was without a doubt the most intense and exciting duel in this competition. It was as if they were welcoming a champion. In stage Dake Dimming. Sarah's clear voice was transmitted through the speakers of the card table. Dake turned over the illusory beast, Ivan magic conducting card to receive the light from Moon Ivan. At the same time, he raised his head to respond. Sarah bit her lower lip hard. suppressing the unwillingness in her heart. She opened her eyes wide and said, "It's not over yet." "Yes." Dake nodded slightly. "I'll wait for you in the finals." When he walked down from the platform, Dake was surrounded by his classmates. "Oh, Dake, you're really something. As expected of the Crimson Star winner, you're different from a certain hero. At first, I thought you were going to lose. Is this the charm of a duel? You're amazing." There were simple and unpretentious praises, as well as meaningless insults and flattery. The Noble Academy students expressed their emotions to their heart's content. Dake was in the center of the crowd. Facing the enthusiasm of his classmates, he could only decline. "No, I'm just lucky. Everything is a 2/5 decision." When the students calmed down, the 4 rounds of the competition had already ended. The 8 contestants were divided into the winners group and the losers group. Winners group 1, 2, 5, 6. Losers group 9, 9, 9, 7. Deanna successfully defeated a student from the House of Fools. Ai Ma also won a duel with a boy from the School of Magic. However, another student from the School of Knights lost to the 9 from the House of Fools. The next round would be a knockout round for the losers group, where 2 out of 4 contestants would be chosen. The winners group would continue with the competition, where 2 out of 4 contestants would be chosen. The 2 people from the winners group would fall to the losers group and duel with the 2 surviving people from the losers group. And so on and so forth. During the break in the competition, Dake sat on a bench at the edge of the room and organized his cards. In fact, his card deck had a lot of flaws. The most fatal one was the extremely long cooldown of the Great Sin series of cards. Pride I's cooldown was 59 minutes. Pride 2's cooldown was even more exaggerated at 180 minutes. Bliss 3's cooldown was slightly better, at 120 minutes. Even though there would be a gap of half an hour between each round of the winners group. However, from the quarterfinals to the finals, there were only 4 intervals, a total of 120 minutes. This meant that Pride 2 could no longer go on stage. Pride I could go on stage after 2 intervals. Bliss 3 could only go on stage in the finals. Therefore, he had to make some adjustments to his card deck. The duel with Sakascati had also given him a great wake-up call. He wasn't the only one among the first years who was making big strides forward. The others were also advancing rapidly. Before the next round of the competition began, Dake finally completed the adjustments to his card deck. First of all, he had to take all 6 Magic Elf cards. Secondly, he had to replace some useless cards and add some support cards. The final result was Magic Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, Kettle, Diru Beast, Milk Jar, Fairy Ibu Push Spell, Obstruction Spell, Magic Bullet Spell, Fading Spell, Flicker Spell. It was still 12 magic cards. The ratio of Magic Elf to other types of magic cards was 1:1. Although this set of cards didn't seem that reliable, this was already the best adjustment Dake could make. He put away the adjusted cards and then got up to walk to the bulletin board where the next stage of the competition was posted. The students surrounded the bulletin board and discussed in low voices. When they saw the top 8 contestants coming, they consciously made way for them. Dake greeted 2 enthusiastic students, and then came behind Deanna, who was looking up with a troubled face. "What's wrong?" Dake asked casually. Luosi turned around and blinked at him. Deanna turned her head and said sadly, "I'm not happy. I'm going to lose." Dake looked up at the schedule. Didn't they just announce the schedule? Why are we going to lose? Ugh. The first line of the winner's bracket was written. 1 versus 2. Winner's bracket sad face 1 field. 1 versus 2, 2 field. 5 versus 7, loser's bracket sad face 3 field. 9 versus 4 field. 7 versus 8. So my next opponent is you? Dake led Deanna out of the crowd. Deanna frowned and said in a low voice, "I thought I could at least fight with you in the semifinals." Dake comforted her. "It's not good to underestimate yourself. You have to believe in your own magic cards. Even I don't have the confidence to win." Deanna said, "But I don't even have a second-tier Magic Elf card." Dake said, "A magic duel is not about whose Magic Elf star level is higher. I almost lost to Saraswati when I was dueling with her. Your card set is very powerful. You are a strong opponent that I have to be careful of. Deanna said, a strong opponent? Then I'll go all out. Dake said, okay, a strong opponent. 2 in 1/4200 words. It was time to fight. Chapter 169. Beep beep beep. Dake, who finally got Deanna's energy back, walked up to the red team's platform under the urging of Professor Cheongsi's whistle. He put the readjusted deck into the card slot and glanced down a little. The students gathered on both sides of the arena were mostly from the Aristocrats Academy. He and Deanna were both representatives of the Aristocrats Academy. Unfortunately, they entered the civil war in the first round of the winners group. However, whether it was a civil war or a foreign war, it did not affect him much. Preparation stage. I'm going to draw a card. Deanna's voice came through the loudspeaker. She was full of energy. Dake nodded slightly and replied, ready. 30s remember the website, MVIP can't you? VIP. The atmosphere between the two sides entered a state of battle. Dake immediately focused. He did not lie to comfort Deanna because Deanna's card deck was indeed very strong. Whether it was the Bear of Earth or the Spirit Bear, they were very versatile magic elf cards. Moreover, she also had the strength of the bear. Since there were not many cards in the deck, the probability of drawing these key cards was very high. If he was not careful, Dake might suffer a crushing defeat. After calming himself down, Dake reached out and drew 5 cards from the shuffled deck at a very fast speed. Push spell, block spell, magic bullet spell, flash spell, pft. How can I play without a elf in my starting hand? Waiting online urgent. Dake's face fell instantly. They were 30 meters apart. Deanna could not see Dake's face clearly. She drew out 5 magic cards according to her own steps. And then her face lit up with joy. Among all her magic cards, the most important ones were the 3 bears and the strength of the bear. The rest of the magic elf cards were basically useless cards. They were completely used to fill up the card deck. After all, if she could not even gather 5 cards in her hand, there was no need to play the game. And this time, her luck was off the charts. Among the 5 magic cards, there was a Spirit Bear. She had a total of 2 3-star magic elf cards. Spirit Bear was one of them. The other was a white card called White Female Boxer. However, she did not draw it. In the starting round, having a Spirit Bear was enough. Moreover, there was a Strength of the Bear. Spirit and Strength of the Bear could increase its attack, which was as high as 1700 by 300, which was a total of 2600 attack. This even broke the limit of a 5-star card. Without a doubt, this was the most offensive combination in Diana's deck. And now, she had drawn these 2 magic cards in the first round. Battle stage 30s. Dake was still hesitating. Without hesitation, she started summoning the bear. The light in. Light the light to. Is. A 3-meter-tall light elemental giant bear walked out of the light under countless gazes. Its face was wise and kind, like an old man telling stories to children in the yard. Deanna actually summoned this bear in the first round? Outside the arena, White, who chose to watch the duel, could not help but be stunned. This bear that broke the charm of taboo love, with only the so-called fetter, left a deep impression on him. With an attack as high as 1700, it was almost immune to physical attacks. Even if one only looked at it from the front, it was the absolute nemesis of Troll. In order to defeat the bear, he could only rely on the ultimate skill of Radiant Python, Sacred Light. It could be said that his deck had been surpassed by Deanna in terms of strength. I wonder how Dake will deal with it. With this thought, White looked at the summoning area of the red team. With Dake's summoning speed, he should be able to summon the magic elf faster than Deanna. However, the summoning area of the red team was empty at this moment. What's going on? The same question appeared in everyone's mind. The first-year students probably did not have this kind of trouble, because they did not have more than 5 non-magic elf cards. Therefore, for a moment, they didn't expect that Dark actually didn't draw any magic elf card. However, Professor Cheongsi, who was the referee, could not help but smirk. If one did not draw any magic elf cards in the initial stage, what should they do? This was a topic that would be held in the next semester. Since someone's learning progress was ahead of time, he would naturally encounter the problem of being ahead of time. I wonder how he will deal with it. On the red team's platform, after the initial shock, Dake had regained his calmness. One round is 30 seconds. I must find a way to survive this 30 seconds. Deanna's summoning speed is within 10 seconds, but it will not be much faster than that. The cooldown of the summoning skill is basically the same as the summoning time. Therefore, she can only summon a second time about 20 seconds after the start of the game. The second summoning can only be completed when the first round is about to end. After that, there will be another 10 seconds of cooldown. In other words, I only need to face 2 summonings. Dake used every minute and second of the preparation stage to think. At the beginning of the battle stage, he had already made his move. Deanna summoned the Spirit Bear, and it took less than 10 seconds. The Spirit Bear was very powerful. However, no matter what she summoned, it was not important to Dake. Go Spirit Bear. Deanna was not confused because Dake did not summon the magic elf. Since it's Dake, there must be a reason for Dake. Based on trust, she attacked without hesitation. The Spirit Bear, which was as big as a small mountain, moved its 4 limbs and ran faster. The Spirit Bear's physical immunity was based on its existence as an energy body. This was different from a spirit. It was a physical body and could come into contact with objects. Pure physical attacks aimed at its body would not cause any substantial damage to it. It was more like an elemental seed. When the Spirit Bear was about to cross half of the field, a 1 cubic meter air brick suddenly appeared in front of it. It's the obstruction spell. Some of the students immediately realized the source of the air brick. However, the strength of the obstruction spell was obviously not enough. Boom. There was a loud noise. The air brick was instantly smashed by the Spirit Bear. Deanna was full of fighting spirit. If it's just the obstruction spell, it can't stop my bear. The obstruction spell only blocked the Spirit Bear for a few seconds and reduced its speed. Dake lowered his eyebrows and picked out the second magic card from his hand. The Spirit Bear sped up again. After a few seconds, it was like a heavy tank and fiercely crashed into the red magic ball. If this crash landed, the winner would be decided in an instant. Up. Seeing that the Spirit Bear's head was about to hit the magic ball, the magic ball that represented the health of the red team suddenly flew up. The Spirit Bear pounced on nothing. Chapter 170. The flying magic ball stopped 4 meters in the air, and was very close to the red team's platform. Dark looked at the transparent hexagonal barrier on the magic crystal ball. He did not let his guard down as he picked out the third magic crystal card. The duel with Sala had given him an idea. How to protect the magic ball from being attacked. Yes, as long as it could fly in the air. Therefore, Dake used the push incantation, and tried to buy as much time as possible to push the magic ball up to its limit, 3 meters. The magic ball was originally 1 meter in the air. It added up to 4 meters. They naturally had the ability to float, and could reduce part of the impact, so that they could float in the air. Remember in 1 second. https://mvipcanchu. VIP. However, 4 meters in the air was obviously not enough. Even if the Spirit Bear's clumsy body did not look like it could jump very well, it was still 3 meters in the air when it was on all fours. Therefore, as long as it stood up, it could easily reach 4 meters in the air. Dake needed a total of 3.8 seconds to activate the next magic card and 3.8 seconds to summon it equals 7.6 seconds. This 7.6 seconds interval was the time it needed to escape. He had to ensure that the Spirit Bear would not react immediately and launch a second attack on the magic ball. According to the intelligence level of a normal magic fairy with 2.0, they would usually be stunned for a while after an attack. Unless the duelist had set the order beforehand, they would react faster. Moreover, the Spirit Bear's high speed would cause inertia and make it difficult for it to stop immediately after the sprint. Therefore, it was calculated theoretically. Even if Dake did not do anything, this 7.6 seconds would be easily passed. If it was a more powerful duelist, there would only be a 6-second interval between the two summons. This would make the battle process much smoother. In addition, Deanna could undoubtedly start the second magic summoning now. What will she choose? When he saw Deanna take out the second magic card from her hand, Dake heaved a sigh of relief. It's settled. On the blue team's platform, Deanna saw that the Spirit Bear's attack did not hit, but she did not immediately realize that it was the effect of the push incantation. This was because she had not actually created the push incantation. Without coming into contact with it, it was hard to imagine. Due to her trust in Dake, she even thought that Dake had summoned some sort of invisible magic fairy. Of course, this was just one of his guesses. In order to deal with the various possibilities, she instinctively made a choice according to her own brain circuit. That was to immediately use the strength of the bear, to make the Spirit Bear stronger, strong enough to deal with all the unknowns. Don't be fooled by the fact that only a certain part of her body was big. She actually had a muscular brain. Who would want to use their brains to solve a problem if they could solve it with their muscles? Dida. The second round began. Deanna's second summoning was finally completed. Bear strength. The Spirit Bear's body was already glowing, but now that it was surrounded by the bear force, it glowed even brighter. Its brows relaxed, and its aged face seemed to have gained new vitality. It became visibly younger. His relaxed muscles instantly tightened, and even expanded rapidly. This caused its originally huge body to swell up by a whole circle. This made it seem as if it could bite off the magic conducting ball if it raised its head. And it did indeed do so. However, the interval of 6 seconds had already passed. Dake had been holding the spell and did not release it until now. He suddenly activated it. The shadow of the magic conducting ball suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. The Spirit Bear that missed for the second time roared in anger. The roar of the giant bear echoed in the arena. It's the flicker spell. White, who had some kind of obsession with the flicker spell, recognized it immediately. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the distance that was a little higher. As expected, he saw the magic conducting ball about 7 meters above the ground. The flicker spell and the push spell had slightly different casting requirements. The push spell could be used on any life or object, and the requirement to determine whether it was successful or not was whether it could be pushed. On the other hand, the flicker spell could only be used on oneself and the magic conducting fairy that was refined with one's magic power. In the broad concept of casting, the magic conducting fairy would be considered as a part of the sorcerer. This fulfilled the original condition that the flicker spell could only be used on oneself. 30 seconds was actually not a long time. Dake's right hand had already touched the first magic conducting card on the top of the deck. His spiritual energy was still tense. Among the remaining 2 cards in his hand, the magic bullet spell could only start from the position of the magic conducting card and release the magic bullet in a certain direction. Unless one had high-level magic power manipulation skills, it could only make it turn. Since the magic conducting ball's height was higher than the contestant's stage, there was a casting angle. The obstruction spell could not block the power of the Spirit Bear at all. In order to deal with the next attack, he had to draw a useful magic conducting card. Fortunately, this was a duel with only 12 magic conducting cards. The next 2 magic conducting cards that he drew would not be too bad. Fade spell, Fantasy Beast Ibu, WTF? Dark clenched the magic card tightly and suddenly felt unwell all over. There were only 6 non-magical sprite cards, but they were all here now. His gaze swept across the arena. After the Spirit Bear missed its second attack, it took some time to find the red magic conducting ball 7 meters in the air. It stood up in anger, and its height was higher than the contestant's stage, extremely close to Dake's position. It was as if as long as it reached out, it could touch its furry bear fur. Deanna, who had also found the magic conducting ball, ordered, "Spirit Bear, take it down." Then, this giant bear that was bigger than a troll jumped up after its leg muscles exerted force. Although the distance it jumped was not high, but it did jump in the air. The bear's paw drew a powerful arc in the air and hit the magic conducting ball in the air. Quick! Dake had already timed the casting for the 3rd time. The black magic bullet was faster than the bear's paw. It hit the magic conducting ball from a 45-degree angle below. 1000900. The magic conducting ball with magic direct drop was like a golf ball that took off and shot towards the blue team's arena. But it did not ignore the air resistance and kept going up. Instead, it drew a parabola and slowly stopped under the effect of the floating mechanism of the magic conducting ball. At this moment it was still high up, but its position had changed from right above the red team's summoning area to right above the blue team's summoning area. The spirit bear with an attack power of 2600 did not hit its target, and could only run back. At this moment, if Deanna still did not realize that Dake did not summon the magic conducting fairy, then she was really stupid. But she did not think that Dake did not get the magic conducting fairy. Instead, she puffed up her cheeks and started to get angry. Didn't you say you would give it your all? Her beep was amplified by the loudspeaker and was relatively loud. Dake, cough cough cough. Chapter 171. Red side, 900, blue side, 1000. The health points of both sides were highlighted in the projection. Half of the second round had already passed. After Dake used the magic bullet spell, it had entered the cooldown period of the usual summoning spell, and there were only 3 magic cards left in his hand. Obstruction spell, Fade spell, Fantasy Beast, Ibu website, https://m, vipcanchu. VIP. How to use these 3 magic cards to survive the next round? Among these 3 magic cards, Fantasy Beast, Ibu was a core magic fairy card with a lot of potential. Its sure kill skill, Imitation, could use 100 MP to release most of the skills it imitated. But, imitation was instantaneous. It could only imitate the skills that the opponent had just used. And it had to be used within Ibu's knowledge. The imitated target, the spirit bear, did not intend to use any skills. And if he used Ibu to harass it, under normal circumstances, the 3-star spirit bear could catch up with the 1-star Ibu in the time it took to yawn. I can only bet on this one possibility. There was no guarantee of victory in an on-the-spot battle. The so-called sure win was at best a probability of 999,999%. After Dake's cooldown period of the usual summoning spell was over, it immediately started to activate the next magic card. At this time, Deanna's summoning cooldown period had also ended. She puffed up her cheeks and started to prepare for the 3rd summoning of this duel. Unfortunately, she didn't have a flying magical fairy in her hand. The skills of the few magic fairy cards were not long-range skills. If she had the push spell, she could push the magic ball down. But she only had the magic bullet spell in her hand. Because of the current angle, the magic bullet spell could only push the magic ball up. According to my summoning speed, there is only 1 summoning chance in the second round. Which one should I choose? Deanna could not help but hesitate. But the spirit bear that had accepted her order did not stop. The spirit bear that ran back to the blue side from the red side stood up again. As if venting its anger at being toyed with, it leaped into the air and swung its paw, which was bigger than a millstone, at the same time. But before it could touch the magic sphere's life barrier, the bear paw came into contact with an invisible brick of air. The final obstacle spell. The gigantic bear paw smashed through the obstacle. But at the same time, it used up all of its remaining strength. By the time it came into contact with the magic conducting ball, it was already at the end of its flight. The magic power of the magic conducting ball plummeted. 900182. However, the life enchantment managed to hold on before it shattered. It was carried upwards by the remaining force, and flew to a height that the spirit bear could not reach. The spirit bear landed on the ground, and looked up at the magic conducting ball that was flying further and further away. It was completely dumbfounded. Spirit bear, _ Outside the arena, Professor Cheongsi couldn't help but face bomb. She had a feeling that the biggest bug hidden in this competition with incomplete rules was about to be exposed. In regular matches, the duelists were allowed to use their mana to guide the ball, so there was no such problem. But the first-year students did not have that kind of ability. Dida. It was time for the 3rd round. Dake took out 2 new magic conducting cards from the deck and smiled. Kettle Kettle. Ibu the fairy. It's decided to be you, Kettle Kettle. When Kettle Kettle materialized in the light, the magic bullet spell that Deanna had been holding back for a long time was finally activated. The pitch-black magic bullet successfully hit the fixed target in the air under the guidance of her spiritual energy. 18282. The magic conducting ball on the red side was once again sent flying. But Deanna had used up the last of her mana waves. She grabbed her cards, and her cute little face scrunched up like a dumpling. She watched as Dake summoned Illusory Beast, Ibu again. Only then did Deanna react. She immediately ordered the spirit bear to attack Ibu. As long as the sacrificial item was destroyed before the sacrificial summoning was completed, the final winner of this match would still be her. Yes. When the spirit bear rushed out, Deanna looked at Ibu, who was hiding behind Kettle Kettle, and Kettle Kettle, who was in front of Ibu. Suddenly, a solution appeared in her little head. The spirit bear stepped over Kettle Kettle. Although its body was shrouded in the glow of the superpower, equal share only weakened its attack to 1,700 divided by 2 plus 900 is equal to 1,750. Facing Ibu, who was only a 1-star, this kind of weakening was not a big deal at all. Before Dake succeeded in summoning the sacrificial summoning spell, the spirit bear could catch up with Ibu and nip the danger in the bud. However, Ibu's body disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. It's the fading spell. The effect of the fading spell was very obvious. Obstacle spell, push spell, magic bullet spell, flicker spell, fading spell. Dark actually managed to refine all 5 universal magic incantations. The exclamations outside the arena were endless. Facing the threat of the spirit bear, Dake did not use the sacrificial summoning spell. Instead, he chose the shorter summoning spell, fading spell. The spirit bear was stunned by the completely invisible Ibu. After using power trick, the tentacles that came out of the hole in Kettle Kettle's shell became thicker and harder. With these tentacles as legs, its speed became slightly faster. In fact, the attack of a magic elf largely represented the strength of the elf. If the strength was strong enough, as long as the body structure did not obstruct it, it could be converted into speed. Therefore, after Ibu leveled up from 1-star to 2-star under the effect of Pride 2, its strength, speed, and other attributes all increased. As for the 1-star fantasy beast, Ibu, its speed was not much faster than Kettle Kettle. During the 5 seconds of invisibility, Ibu did not run very far. However, Kettle Kettle, whose attack became 2,200, successfully grabbed the spirit bear's heel. Physical attacks did not cause any substantial damage to the spirit bear. Therefore, Kettle Kettle did not attack. Instead, it grabbed the spirit bear's heel tightly with both legs, completely turning into a trap. While the effects of power cantrip were still in effect, the spirit bear could not escape. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Ibu turned around and looked at the spirit bear that couldn't go berserk because it couldn't turn around and attack its heel. It licked its paws and washed its face. Deanna on the blue team's platform began to summon White Female Boxer. After the cooldown ended, this 3-star white card that was drawn in the 3rd round might be her last hope. He was a little faster than Deanna. Dake raised the last card in his hand. Within 3 rounds, he had completed a total of 9 summons in a matter of seconds. This requirement of magic power and mental power had far exceeded the normal range of a first-year student. He is indeed the son of the Valkyrie. As Professor Cheongsi exclaimed, the duel arena became a stage surrounded by fluttering ribbons and pink light. Ibu the fairy on the stage. Chapter 172. Fairy Ibu was already cute enough. With the passive skill Body of Charm, it was born with a charming aura. Although Body of Charm was only effective on the opposite sex, it was a seductive effect. Apart from seduction, if it was purely cute, girls would be attracted to it more easily. There were a few girls outside the arena who were attracted to it after it appeared. They wanted to rush into the arena and hug it. However, if they ignored the powerful strength hidden under its cute appearance, they would definitely be hurt. As Kettle Kettle and Illusory Beast, Ibu became the sacrificial offerings of the sacrificial summoning. There was no longer anyone who could hold the spirit bear back. The liberated spirit bear showed its majesty and angrily rushed towards the newly born fairy Ibu. Fairy Ibu's body was surrounded by moonlight like a thin veil. It raised its head slightly and looked at the glowing giant bear. Its pink ribbons danced slowly. The spirit bear's attack was still only 1750, and the effect of equal distribution of strength was still in effect. Remember the website, MVIP can't you? 6 Fairy Ibu's attack was 1700. With a difference of only 50 points, it was a competition of many factors such as mobility, reaction, and technique. However, physical attacks were not very useful to the spirit bear. It was afraid of magical attacks that could cause substantial damage to energy bodies. The spirit bear with a defense value of 0 and a magical power value of only 1400 could be killed with a magical attack that dealt more than 1400 damage. However, Fairy Ibu did not do that. It raised its head, and there was a soft light in its eyes that was so charming that it looked like water was about to drip out. Heartsuit, heartsuit. Then it opened its red lips and started to sing a seductive song. The skill voice of seduction was activated. While it caused substantial damage to the spirit bear, it also transformed the seduction effect of body of charm into the form of sound and expanded it. The spirit bear slowly stopped in its tracks. Its anger was appeased, and its eyes gradually became infatuated. A heartsuit symbol appeared in the depths of its eyes. The effect of body of charm was not 100% triggered. However, the spirit bear was obviously infatuated. This kind of infatuation was different from the simple brainwashing of taboo love. There was a part of it that was truly infatuated. If the spirit bear did not think that Fairy Ibu was charming enough, then the chances of it falling for her trick would be very low. However, after what happened to White, Dake didn't think that charming body's effect would last long. Moreover, the mental damage caused by the bewitching voice was slowly depleting the spirit bear's mana. However, as long as the spirit bear was slowed down, Fairy Ibu would be able to take the opportunity to attack the blue square's magic conducting ball. It turned slightly to look at the arcane orb, and lifted its front leg with extreme elegance. But from the blue team's platform, a beam of light was suddenly released. Along with the light, Deanna's second 3-star magic elf landed on the ground. White female boxer. Card name, White female boxer. Type, elf card. Level, *****. Race, human attribute. Combat magic power, 800 attack, 1100 defense, 700 ultimate skill, none. From the data on the interface, it was almost at the level of a 2-star magic guide sprite. Plus, he didn't have a sure kill skill. The white female boxer could be said to be a useless card among the 3 stars. However, if it was only used as a 2-star card or a 3-star offering, it would still be quite useful. The white female boxer who was kneeling on one knee stood up calmly. From the color of her hair to her clothes to her skin, they were all snow white. The gloves on her hands were a display of her attack power. There was a human race among the magic guide sprites, but as mentioned before, this was only a classification similar to the devil race. However, they weren't really human. The human race magic guide sprites had more vocal organs, but their intelligence level of 2.0 didn't allow them to speak human language. On the blue team's platform, Deanna stared at the spirit bear that was captivated by Fairy Ibu. While she hated it for not fighting back, she gave an order to the white female boxer that no one expected. Sister female boxer, throw the magic conducting ball and end everything. The moment she finished speaking, there was an uproar among the spectating students. Deanna's order seemed simple, but it was beyond their expectations. Is this something that a human can think of? Doran became nervous. As expected of Deanna, Luosi opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything for a long time. On the red team's platform, Dake was also shocked. Then he smiled. So there's this move. He made a prompt decision and gave an order. Fairy Ibu Moon Power. Thus, the most powerful spirit bear in the arena became a spectator. The white-haired female boxer with an enchanting and slender figure suddenly turned around and picked up the magic ball. Using the explosive force of her twisting waist, she exerted force with both hands and threw the metal ball that looked light, but was actually abnormally heavy after losing the floating property, from below with great force. She really didn't hesitate at all. She displayed the amazing execution of a female boxer. However, moonlight suddenly sprinkled down from the sky. Fairy Ibu opened her mouth, and the pure moonlight condensed into a ball in her mouth at an extremely fast speed. Then she suddenly released it. The moon power's light beam spread out faster than the blue magic conducting ball that was thrown out. It directly aimed at a position slightly below the red magic conducting ball. The light beam rippled like the Milky Way and lasted in the air for half a second. Then the blue magic conducting ball crashed into it. Crack! Deanna pursed her lips. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimung. Following Professor Cheongsi's whistle, the duel entered its final end stage. Dake finally breathed a sigh of relief. He put down his empty hands and collected the used magic conducting cards from the table one by one. This duel made him realize the importance of card combinations. Although the common magic spell cards had their own uses, they lacked a link with the magic conducting fairy. If one's luck was bad, the duelist would be in trouble. However, he had no choice now. Let's rearrange it later. He raised his hand and put Fairy Ibu back into the magic conducting card. Then he looked at Deanna opposite him and walked down the platform first. If one wanted to improve, one had to learn how to summarize. The reason why he was in trouble in this duel was that he was too unlucky. The other reason was that he didn't have a good set of cards. However, the most fundamental reason was that the magic conducting cards in his hands were not comprehensive enough. There were too few magic conducting cards in the first tier. After this duel, before the next one, the most important thing was to expand the card pool. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Deanna's card combination was strong enough. That Bear Spirit card combined with Bear's Strength was really amazing. If Deanna's summoning speed was faster, the outcome would be hard to predict. Oh. Chapter 173. Dark, who came down from the contestant stage, quickly met up with Diana. Deanna pouted unhappily. If I knew that Dake didn't get a magic guide spirit, I would have summoned a new one the second time. Even if it was a useless card, I could still use it as a projectile. Dake chuckled. So no matter what you do, you should learn to use your brain first. Deanna complained. But I'm not smart. Dake. You'll get smart if you use it more. Okay, let's go next door and take a look. Venue 2. Also in the winners group, AI Ma Metis's duel was still going on. Her opponent, the student from the Academy of Fools, was unexpectedly tenacious. Although the white card in his hand didn't have a killing move, its stats were good and its summoning speed wasn't slow either. Relying on the large number of white cards, he had been able to last until now. Some students did some calculations and found that he had summoned a total of 10 magic guide spirits by the end of the duel. Unfortunately, these magic guide spirits weren't strong enough. Remember, https://m.vipcanshu. VIP. My opponent in the next round is still AI Ma? Dake focused slightly and vaguely felt that AI Ma, who was still on the stage, was looking at him. This round of the competition was over. The winners group advanced to the next round. 1 Dake and 5, AI Ma advanced, while 2 Deanna and 3, student from the Academy of Fools were relegated to the losers group. However, there were many examples of people coming from the losers group to win the competition. In addition to the strength of the deck, luck and tactics were also very important to the outcome of a duel. The contestants in the losers group summed up their experience and adjusted their deck or tactics. It was very likely that they could turn defeat into victory. In this round of the losers group, No Sarah easily won against the boy from the Academy of Magic, who was also from the Academy of Magic. The student from the Academy of Knights narrowly defeated the student from the Academy of Fools and successfully advanced to the next round of the losers group. No and 5 were eliminated one after another. The new competition schedule was quickly released. Winners group, Venue 1. 1 versus 5 losers group, Venue 2. 2 versus 7 Venue 3. Venue 1 versus Venue 9. Dake found a long bench and sat down. Then he began to replenish the mana of the magic card and adjust the deck. Learning from the experience of the last duel, Dark's adjustment of the deck this time was mainly focused on the word streamlining. The situation of lacking the first-tier Magic Elven card couldn't be changed for the time being, and the Magic Elven card didn't have a chain effect. They could only try their best to reduce the probability of no monsters at the start, within the rules. If possible, it would be best to target AIMA's deck as much as possible. But in reality, this is very difficult. Dake first added Pride Eye back into the deck. Using Pride Eye to deal with Golden Treasure Chest was a relatively common tactic. After that, he temporarily simplified the rest of the magic cards and added Illusory Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, and Kettle into the deck. The second tier of Magic Elven cards was still to be decided. In fact, Dake had thought of only carrying 5 Magic Elf cards as a deck. In that case, the starting 5 cards would all be available. However, if one thought about it carefully, one would realize that if it was a combination of 3 first-tier Magic Elf cards and 2 second-tier Magic Elf cards, as long as the opponent could summon a powerful 3-star Magic Elf like the Spirit Bear at the beginning of the first round, then Dark would almost certainly lose. Up to this point in the competition, the information about the player's deck was more or less exposed. As Dake gradually figured out the core magic cards of the other players also understood his core magic cards. For example, in the previous competition, Sarah used Sphinx Cat to lock Kettle, so he couldn't use Sacrifice to summon. And in his first-tier Magic Elf cards, Illusory Beast, Ibu and Trash Slime were both super weak. This caused him to be in a predicament. But this was actually not the best solution. To sacrifice to summon a 4-star Magic Elf, one needed Kettle plus Illusory Beast, Ibu, or Kettle plus Trash Slime. Then, as long as Dake summoned Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime, and then killed them, that was not a predicament, but a hopeless situation. The weakness of Kettle's slow movement speed was probably already exposed. The AIMA would very likely choose to ignore Kettle and switch to killing Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime. As long as he killed them before the sacrifice summoning spell was completed, Dake would not be able to summon a 4-star Magic Elf at all. He did not have enough control over the sacrifice summoning spell, so his speed was not fast. So keeping only 5 Magic Elf cards in the deck was no different from sending himself to death. He needed to ensure that there were additional cards to ensure the survival of Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime. Then, I can add in a Fade spell. Also, to deal with the bug tactic of throwing the magic ball into the air, I need a Push spell. Magic Bullet spell and Obstruction spell can be temporarily simplified. Flash spell. Let's put it aside first. 3 second-tier Magic Elf cards are too many. Fairy Ibu has a long-range attack skill, so I have to keep it. Diru Beast or Big Milk can be chosen. Diru Beast has the buff of Holy Ring. Its stats are the best, and it has the highest mobility. Big Milk is a meat shield, and it is unbeatable when it rolls. But at the current stage, Big Milk is not as convenient as Diru Beast. Moreover, Diru Beast has a control skill, Cat Eyes. The results were Illusory Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, Pride Eye, Push spell, Fade spell, only 8 Magic Elf cards. Starting with 5 cards, the probability of not getting a first-tier Magic Elf card was very low. In fact, if he were to reduce 1 card further, he could guarantee that he would get a first-tier Magic Elf card. But Dake did not do that, as he needed to increase his margin of error. AIMA's summoning speed was faster than Deanna's, and the cards would definitely be more unpredictable than Deanna's. It would be very difficult to deal with. After Dake made the initial adjustments, he continued to replenish his mana while thinking. Then he suddenly had an idea. No, what if the base of this set of cards is reduced to 5 cards such as Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, and Pride Eye? What would happen? This train of thought woke him up in an instant, and he became much more clear-headed. In this competition where there was no limit to the number of cards, 5 cards was the bottom line. Pride Eye would be used to deal with Golden Treasure Chest. Fairy Ibu would deal with high-altitude tactics. AIMA did not have a Magic Elf card like Sphinx Cat that could lock down offerings, so it did not need 3 first-tier Magic Elf cards. As for how to ensure the survival of the offerings, It was necessary for Fairy Ibu and Diru Beast to exist together. Dake's train of thought became clearer, and he finally decided. The final result was Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, Pride Eye. Time passed quickly. The contestants needed to hurry up and replenish their mana. And even half an hour was not enough. The students outside of the contestants were still passionately discussing the previous round of the competition, and did not find waiting boring at all. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. A new round of the competition had begun. Since the competition grounds had changed from 4 to 3, Professor Claire, who was temporarily in charge of the House of Fools, was able to free up her hands. Of course, she appeared in the winner's field 1 to watch Dake's competition. Among the rest of the students from the House of Aristocrats and the Academy of Knights were all gathered there. Most of the students from the School of Magic were watching Sarah's competition in Field 2. The students from the House of Fools were gathered in Field 3. When the competition was about to start, Dake and Deanna encouraged each other and went to different fields. Luosi followed Deanna. Deanna's opponent this round was contestant number 7 from the Academy of Knights. Her opponent was a boy with a bright face, who once encouraged White in their first-class competition. His temperament and body shape were like that of a standard paladin, and he was quite popular in the Academy of Knights. His name was Justin Wayne. Although Wayne was in the losers group, he was not weak. This duel was a test for Deanna. Dake thought about Deanna as he walked to the contestants' field. It was still the red field, and he was very familiar with the environment. First, he put the 5 magic cards into the card slot. After the card table was activated by magic, it automatically shuffled the cards. He looked at the 5 magic cards that could only be shuffled and smiled inexplicably. I'm afraid this is the last time in my life that I will use such a shameless tactic in a duel. On the other side, Aima Métis also went to the blue field. Looking at Dake dimming from afar, Aima clenched her fists tightly. In her first-class competition, she was defeated by Dake. That failure had also changed her life. She listened to Dake's advice and tried to change herself a little. Finally, she got to where she was now. Looking down at the students who were cheering for her, Aima held her mouth and didn't let herself laugh happily. Deep in her heart, she really wanted to get more recognition. It's time for revenge. Aima raised her head again, and her eyes were shining. Dake then heard Aima's declaration. Dake, this time I will win. Dake was a little surprised, then smiled and said, Sure, I'm looking forward to it. The exchange between the two sides ended and the game entered the countdown. Preparation stage. 30's Dake immediately focused, and the magic flowing in his body maintained an extremely high activity. Then he directly pulled out all 5 magic cards from the card slot. At this moment, the sharp-eyed audience immediately noticed that on the projection of the card table, Dake's card slot was no longer filled with magic cards. What's going on? He only brought 5 magic cards with him? Doran, who had been paying attention to Dake, opened his mouth wide in surprise. The fat student next to him wondered. Could it be that he took the wrong deck? Of course, that was impossible. A few students around him couldn't help but glance at him. Not far away, the 2 girls from the Knights Academy, Susan and Lucy, who always sat on either side of Aima, also noticed the number of cards Dake's deck. One of them was beaming with joy, while the other had a serious expression. Susan, who was beaming with joy, couldn't help but raise her voice. Only 5 magic cards. What if they are used up? Our family's Emma doesn't know how to show mercy to women. Seeing that the students of the Knights Academy were staring at her, Lucy quickly pushed her arm and whispered, Control yourself, I have a bad feeling. Professor Claire, who was standing behind the students, and Professor Cheong-si, who was the referee, looked at each other, and then smiled with folded arms. In short, the audience suddenly became alert. And the 2 players on the players' stage were not affected. Less than 30 seconds of thinking time was not a long time. Aima was thinking hard according to the cards in her hand, and did not pay attention to Dake. Among her 5 cards, one was Golden Treasure Box, and the other was Golden Beast. Golden Beast was a magic elf card that Aima had successfully refined in her introduction to magic class. At that time, Dake had refined Kettle Pot. Deanna had refined Earth Bear, White had refined Troll, and Luoboat had refined Ratman Cyborg. Golden Beast was refined with ancient gold coins as the core material. It had appeared in the previous few matches, and it was a mechanical type about 2 meters tall with a shell made of gold. The strength of Golden Beast had been demonstrated in several matches, and Dake had heard a little bit about it. Battle stage. 30s. The moment the words on the table changed, both players began to summon at the same time. Magic summoning. Magic summoning. Dake was still faster than the others, and the white light from the magic card fell on the red summoning area. After Kettle Pot materialized, a 4-legged head came out of its shell. It blinked and moved a little on the spot. Then, it went back into the shell, only revealing its small head. Dake had given it a defense command before the match, so it was very cautious now. Then, only a few seconds later, AI-Ma successfully summoned Golden Beast, in the 8th second of the battle stage. The Golden Beast that appeared in the blue summoning area looked like a golden Tau from its appearance. It was the shape of the stone lions that were often placed on both sides of the door, but it was more powerful and more ferocious. Dake had seen something similar in the book Golden King and the Secret Treasure. After AI-Ma summoned the Golden Beast, she immediately ordered it to rush to the red summoning area. From the appearance, Kettle Pot was not comparable to the Golden Beast at all, as if it could be crushed with one bite. But of course, AI-Ma would not be confused by Kettle Pot's appearance, and her thoughts were very clear. She approached the summoning area, waited for Dake to summon for the second time, and then killed the other magic elf that was used as a sacrifice. 2 in 1 for 1,000 words. Chapter 174. Card name, Golden Beast. Type, Sprite card. Level, *****. Race, Machine Attribute, Steel. Magic Power, 1000. Attack, 1300. Defense, 1500. Ultimate Skill, Golden Devour. The Golden Beast was an ancient machine. Conceptually, it was a product of forgotten technology. It was similar to a golem, but unlike a golem, its entire body was made of machinery. Website. https://mvipcanchu. VIP. Strictly speaking, the Golden Beast that was refined using magical technology was not the same as the real Golden Beast, because it did not have a mechanical core. The mechanical core was the heart of all ancient machines. Until today, the only remaining mechanical core in the world was kept in a museum. On the other hand, the Golden Beasts that were refined using magical technology were mechanical cores that were replaced by the special life mechanism of the magical card. This also made them different from the real Golden Beasts. AI-Ma's Golden Beast was mainly for defense, but its attack was not to be underestimated. Its ultimate skill, Golden Devour, was a godly skill. Under AI-Ma's command, the Golden Beast stretched its limbs and ran toward the red summoning area in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, Dake began to cast the second normal summoning spell. Not long after the Golden Beast started, Dake had already completed the summoning. A ray of white light came out from the second magical card in his hand. Under Dake's deliberate guidance, the white light landed on Kettle's shell. It then turned into a solid form. It was the trash slime. Before this, Dark had instinctively considered the stronger, illusory beast, Ibu as a model, so much so that he thought that after Kettle's weakness was exposed, it would be hard for it to protect the one-star magic guide fairy as a sacrifice. That kind of thinking was correct. But if illusory beast, Ivan, was replaced with trash slime, Kettle would be able to protect it. This was because trash slime's volume was even smaller than an apple when it was condensed. As long as trash slime was hidden in the shell, it would be foolproof. After all, this was a real duel and not a card game. Breaking through the inherent thinking of playing cards, one would discover many points that could be used. Under Dake's orders, with a slurp sound, the trash slime drilled into Huahu's shell. This combination of chong directly stunned the audience, the professor, and AI-Ma on the stage. Even the Golden Beast stopped in its tracks. It widened its eyes and used its intelligence level of 2.0 to think about how to carry out its master's mission. The result was needless to say. If it could think, then it wouldn't be an intelligence level of 2.0. The sacrificial summoning couldn't be stopped. AI Ma drew a magic card from her hand and immediately gave a new order to the golden beast. Bypass that kettle and attack the magic ball directly. Upon receiving its master's new order, the golden beast immediately raised its head and roared to raise its spirits. Then, it suddenly leaped up and started running again. However, Kettle was summoned directly in front of the magic sphere. The kettle in its normal form was 0.6 meters tall. The initial height of the magic conducting ball was 1 meter. It only needed to stretch its neck as much as possible, or use its tentacles to prop up its body, and it would be easier to reach the magic sphere. However, the diameter of the magic sphere was 0.3 meters, which was equivalent to the height of little Ivan. The magic sphere with the life enchantment was even bigger. Therefore, touching the magic sphere was only the beginning. If one wanted to fish it out, they would need to use another force. The magic sphere's levitation characteristic was based on applying a telekinesis to itself to fix it in a certain position in the air. If one wanted to move it, they would need to resist this telekinesis. Fortunately, the telekinesis wasn't too much. Even if it didn't use power trick, Kettle could still fish out the magic sphere. Then it would hide behind it. This kind of hiding didn't have much practical significance. After all, there were holes in all directions. However, it could lure the golden beast to approach Kettle, and Kettle would be able to grasp the timing and give the golden beast a fierce punch. This punch might not be able to knock down the golden beast, but it could at least buy some time. The magic power of the magic sphere's life enchantment was 1,000. The power of a 3-star magic elf was 1,500. After power sharing, there were only 750 left. The magic sphere's life enchantment could completely withstand a blow without shattering. This would buy some time. If it wasn't enough, Kettle could even throw the magic sphere into the air. This golden beast wouldn't fly, right? Kettle's eyes glowed with the light of superpower. When the golden beast approached, it immediately used power sharing. The golden beast and Kettle's attack power both became 650. Then Kettle used power trick again to switch attack and defense. Its tentacles suddenly became thicker and bigger, and even the outline of muscles appeared. However, the golden beast suddenly leaped and jumped over its head. Kettle raised its head, and its head turned 180 degrees with the golden beast. It saw the cyborg land its front paw in an extremely smooth manner. It used the momentum to turn around, opened its bloody mouth angrily, and bit at the magic sphere. Crack! The golden beast's sharp teeth pierced through the life enchantment, and obvious cracks appeared on the enchantment. 10004000 in a hurry. Kettle stretched out its tentacle and pushed the magic sphere away. The moment it pushed the magic sphere away, it rolled up another tentacle and hammered upwards. Boom! With this hammering, the golden beast's huge head suddenly tilted back. Its magic power plummeted. However, with its mechanical heavy metal structure, the golden beast didn't fly away from the impact. Then it ferociously clawed at Kettle. At the same time, AI Ma completed her second normal summoning, and a gold coin with wings appeared in the blue side's summoning area. Not long after, Dake's sacrificial summoning was finally completed. Kettle, who was fighting against the golden beast, suddenly turned into light, and a pink fairy with ribbons jumped out of the sacrificial summoning circle. Fairy Ibu, who appeared once again, caused a commotion outside the arena. Only AI Ma's expression didn't look so good. However, she remained calm. She pointed her finger, and the gold coin with wings suddenly accelerated, like a golden light crossing the arena, and pouncing towards the golden beast. At this moment, Fairy Ibu had just appeared, and when she looked up she saw the ferocious golden beast. There was a difference in height between the two, and the difference in size was even greater. However, the golden beast was the one who was nervous. Fairy Ibu opened her mouth slightly, and a note was already leaking out. Heartsuit, heartsuit. The golden beast subconsciously took a step back. AI Ma, who was on the blue side's platform, suddenly roared, "Cover your ears." The golden beast's mechanical ears immediately covered downwards, and it couldn't hear anything else. Its already low magic power suddenly stopped falling. As expected. Seeing this, AI Ma regained her confidence. She immediately shouted, "Gold coin bug parasitize." The flying gold coin stuck to the spine of the golden beast with a plop. Then its body sank, and it actually merged with the golden beast's golden shell. Then the golden beast raised its head and roared, and from both sides of its body, 2 balls of liquid metal suddenly drilled out. When they formed armor to cover its entire body, they actually transformed into a pair of golden wings. The golden beast could really fly. Card name, Golden Bug. Type, Fairy card. Level, Race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic power 100, Attack 0, Defense 100, Ultimate skill, Golden parasitism. The golden bug with 0 attack power was so weak that it could be killed with a slap. However, after it used its ultimate skill, golden parasitism, it could increase the magic power and defense of the host by 300. More importantly, it could bestow the host with a pair of golden wings. The wings came with its own ultimate skill. Feather arrow. Card name, Golden Beast Golden Parasitism. Type, Fairy card. Level, for all. Race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic power, 1300. Attack, 1300. Defense, 1800. Ultimate skill, Golden Devour Feather arrow. Its magic power limit increased by 300. Its defense value broke through the normal peak that 3-star elves could reach, and its mobility skyrocketed. This golden beast actually had the demeanor of a 4-star magic guide elf. And its magic power, which had already reached the bottom, also recovered to a relatively healthy state, because of the increase in its magic power limit. When the effect of equal distribution of power gradually disappeared, its threat would skyrocket. Fairy Ibu stopped singing. In front of a mechanical type, the effect of Charming Body would be greatly reduced. Fairy Ivan, whose attack power was only 1700, would find it difficult to break through the golden beast's defense. Moreover, the compatibility between the fairy and steel types was not good. The only advantage was that Fairy Ivan's defense was as high as 1300, which happened to be a state where the golden beast would find it difficult to break through. Dake's thoughts were quickly turning. This seemed to be the first time that AI might use the ultimate skill of the winged gold coin in front of the public. The so-called gold coin bug was a magic guide elf with a similar function to the Armed series item cards. With the gold coin bug's parasitism, the golden beast would have the ability to fight against Fairy Ivan. Fortunately, Dake had already anticipated the possibility of such a situation. Thus, he had prepared a Diru beast among the 5 cards in the deck. However, before the second sacrificial summon, he still had to do some experiments. Moon power. Fairy Ivan's forehead suddenly scattered the light of the moon. She opened her mouth slightly, and those specks of light quickly gathered in her mouth, forming a ball of moonlight, which she suddenly spat out. The ball of light blossomed at the exit, turning into a light beam with a wide range. The target was the blue magic guide ball. People often forgot that breaking the magic guide ball's life barrier was the initial goal of the duel. However, Aima clearly did not forget. The golden beast had already made its move when Fairy Ivan began to accumulate power. When the moon power was shot out, it had already flapped its wings and flew over, blocking the path of the light beam. The golden beast, which had taken the brunt of the fairy's ultimate skill, stood motionless in the midst of the moonlight's punishment, due to its 1800 defense, and the steel type's partial immunity to the fairy's skills. Fairy Ivan frowned slightly, and let out a short cry. Then, she suddenly lowered her head and pounced on the golden beast in front of her like the wind. The golden beast, which had descended from the sky to block the moon power, didn't even have time to fly before Fairy Ivan slammed into its head. Its head wasn't covered by the liquid metal produced by the gold coin bug's parasitism, so its defense was still at its original 1300. This was the difference between reality and the game. The golden beast's magic value dropped again. It was instantly crippled. It hurriedly flapped its wings and flew high, dodging Fairy Ivan's finishing blow. After Fairy Ivan's attack missed, she took the opportunity to pounce on the blue magic guide ball. At this moment, Dake sensed that something was wrong and immediately said, "Return to defense." Fairy Ivan turned on her toes, and like a ballet dancer on stage, she spun and twisted her body, Decisively abandoning her target and following her master's orders, she stood in front of the red magic guide ball to protect it. In the sky, the golden beast flapped its wings, and feathers suddenly stood up from the pile of golden wings. Feather arrow. It was almost at the same time as Ai Ma's shout. The golden beast shot out a golden feather arrow from both sides. 2 golden rays of light flashed and hit the body of Fairy Ibu, who had turned into a shield. However, Fairy Ivan, whose magic value was as high as 1900, only lightly landed on the ground, indicating that it was just a drizzle. With a light shake, she shook off the golden feather. The golden beast, who had released the feather arrow, had exhausted all its magic, and only had a sliver of health left. Ai Ma looked at the data displayed on the golden beast's magic guide card and felt more and more anxious. The pressure that Dake gave her in the duel wasn't something that any other student could compare to. On the other hand, Dake was still calm and unruffled. While he was waiting for Ai Ma to come up with a countermeasure, he was also waiting for the cooldown of the sacrificial summon to end. Drip. Only half a minute had passed since the attack, and defense was so tight that it made it hard for people to breathe. The duel entered the second round. Ai Ma began to draw cards, but both sides' summons were still on cooldown. At this moment, Fairy Ivan's ribbon stretched out and rolled up the 2 golden feathers on the ground. Then her gaze focused. Without Dake's command, she suddenly swung her ribbon and used one of the golden feathers as a projectile. Shot directly at the golden beast. Swoosh! The golden beast, who only had a sliver of health left, almost instinctively used its golden wings to block the attack. At this moment, Fairy Ivan took advantage of the gap and shot a second golden feather at the blue magic guide ball. Crack! The golden feather carried the power of 1700 attack power, and forcefully pierced through the blue magic guide ball's life barrier. Ai Ma looked at the golden treasure box in her hand, her face ashen. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimung. End stage. Dake waved his hand. Fairy Ivan instantly split into 3 rays of light, and entered the 3 magic guide elf cards one by one. This was how a magic guide duel was. In a situation where there was a great disparity in strength, the outcome could be determined in just one round. You're still a little too young. Dake glanced at Ai Ma and said in a low voice. The most fundamental reason why it's hard for a first-year student to defeat a first-year student is always the summoning speed. 2-in-1 4150 words. Chapter 175. Although Dake had already lowered his voice, the loudspeaker in the table still amplified his voice. Ai Ma suddenly realized that she had been so engrossed in studying the murals during this period that she had neglected the most basic summoning practice. Although 8 seconds of summoning was fast enough for a little mage at her age, it was only at the level of White Gouda. It was far from Dake Dimung. When she had completed 2 summons, Dake was about to complete his sacrificial summoning. The difference in basic ability between the two was like a chasm. With this little ability, how could she talk about winning it back? When she thought of the opening declaration she had made because of her confidence in the deck, Ai Ma felt endless shame. She stayed on the contestants' stage for quite some time. When she came back to her senses, the contestants' stage was already empty. As soon as Dake stepped down from the stage, he was surrounded by the students of the Noble Academy. The students congratulated him for entering the finals as the first place of the winners group. Remember the URL, MVIP can't you? 6 After he politely responded, he led the students of the Noble Academy to the second venue. Deanna was dueling with the number contestant, Justin Wayne. At the moment when the duel between Dake and Ai Ma had ended, the duel between Deanna and Wayne seemed to have just begun. Both sides had 2 magic elves on the stage. Wayne's magic elves seemed to be of the knight series. One was a human knight, and the other was an orc knight. Both were magic elves of the fighting type. Deanna's venue was the Spirit Bear, and the Bear of Earth. The Spirit Bear gained an extremely violent strength under the Strength of the Bear's buff. However, Wayne seemed to have used a special magic card to fix it in place. Deanna could only use the Bear of Earth to barely deal with it. However, when the third bear was summoned, the Bear of Earth relied on the Bear's Bond to increase its magic power, attack, and defense by 600 points. This allowed it to obtain a powerful panel that even a 3-star magic elves couldn't have as a 2-star. And it successfully killed Wayne's human knight. After that, the spirit bear's immobilization was finally lifted. In the midst of the roaring of the 3 bears, the 3rd enchanted elf that Wayne had summoned in a hurry did not work. It was completely destroyed by Deanna. The competition finally came to an end. On the other side, student number 1 of the Yard of Fools, who had relied on a large number of white cards to survive until now, was defeated by Saraswati. The competition had come to an end, and it was time for the loser group to decide the winner. AI Ma, who fell from the winners group, would fight the winner between Deanna and Sarah. The final winner would be able to challenge the champion of the winners bracket, Dake Dimung. Losers group, Venue 1, Venue 2 versus Venue 9. Dake then realized that he had made a mistake in his calculations. There would be an extra 30 minutes, but it was not a big deal. When they were preparing for the next round, Deanna was obviously nervous. She looked like she really wanted to go back to the finals and compete with Dake for the championship again. However, Saraswati's card deck was stronger than expected, and her summoning speed was even faster than AI Ma and White. She was second only to Dake among the first-year students. In the duel with Dake, Sarah only used a set of targeted cards. She also had a powerful 3-star magic card that she could not summon. Deanna's strongest combination was Spirit Bear and Strength of the Bear. Once Spirit Bear was restricted by Sphinx Cat's Shadow Stomp, her combat power would be greatly reduced. When both sides' trump cards were exposed one after another, some of the results could be predicted. After half an hour, both sides who had finished replenishing their mana entered the arena. At this moment, except for Professor Cheong-si, who was still acting as the referee, the other 3 professors were free. They were watching the duel outside the arena, and they were not optimistic about Deanna. The result was as expected. Deanna stopped there and left the arena with the 4th place of the first-year students. In the next round, losers group, Venue 1, No versus No, AI Ma Métis versus Saraswati. The attention of this match was no less than the semi-finals of the winners group. Because there was only one arena, all the first-year students gathered here. AI Ma, as the representative of the College of Knights, would compete with Sarah, the representative of the College of Magic. The College of Knights and the College of Magic, which did not have much interaction with each other, suddenly became hostile. Dake and Deanna, who had already broken free from the disappointment, stood together and watched the match as spectators. AI Ma and Sarah were both defeated by him in the losers group, and both of them did not use all their magic cards in the duel with him. Therefore, watching this duel could also be used as a way to gather information before the final. Dake watched very seriously. Deanna said cheerfully, "Dake, who do you think has a better chance between the 2 of them?" Dake thought for a while and shook his head. It's hard to tell. The difference in summoning speed between the 2 of them was limited. Although Sarah was faster, it was not to the extent that there was a qualitative difference. Also, each of the magic cards had its own strengths. Therefore, it was hard to tell. Deanna pouted. "I think Sarah will win." Dake asked curiously, "Why?" Deanna. "Because she beat me." Dake's mouth tightened. Luo Si on the side joked. Deanna, in the first interclass competition, Sarah was eliminated by AI Ma. Deanna. Now it's different from the past. Contestant No. 5 AI Ma Métis, contestant number 9 Saraswati, as the best in their respective academies, especially in terms of learning attitude. They are worthy of being studied by everyone. They were able to come this far because of their hard work and the display of their knowledge. I hope you can understand that although the College of Magic does not have as high a requirement for knowledge as the College of Ancient Magic, it is still a learned profession. Contestants from both sides, please enter the arena. Professor Cheong-si's voice echoed in the arena. AI Ma and Sarah went up to the contestants' stands. "Hey, I heard you lost in the first round?" After Sarah started the card table, he said casually. AI Ma's face changed after hearing that. The effect was outstanding. Thinking back, she seemed to have regarded Dake as her competition target since the beginning of the semester. However, until now she was only one step ahead in the study of murals, and that was under the circumstance that Dake was not interested in it. The last round of the competition made her aware of her shortcomings, and she would work hard to correct them in the future. However, all of this had nothing to do with the woman in front of her. Aima responded with a little anger. I lost in the second round, but didn't you lose in the third round? After I defeat you, I will return to the finals and compete with him again. Sarah smiled sweetly. What a coincidence. I was thinking the same thing. The temperature between the two of them dropped to the freezing point, and the duel was about to start. Preparation stage. 30s. Both of them drew cards at the same time. Aima pursed her lips. The corners of Sarah's mouth faintly curled up. But in fact, both of them drew the magic card that they wanted the most. Battle stage. 30s. Magic summoning. Sarah pulled out a magic card and held it high in her hand. Her summoning speed was faster than Aima's, and her momentum was overwhelming. What appeared in the blue summoning area was a magic elf that was not summoned in Dake's duel. Dead mummy. It was a mummy that was wrapped in snow-white bandages all over its body. Card name Dead Mummy. Type Elf card. Level *****. Race Undying species. Attribute Dark. Magic power 1000. Attack 100. Defense 1600. Ultimate skill Feign death. The dead mummy was 2 meters tall, but both of its arms were tightly bound by bandages on both sides of its body. Only a small gap was revealed on its face where its eyes were. Its legs were tightly bound together, and it could only bend its knees and jump. It had no attack power at all. At the cost of only 100 points of attack power, the dead mummy obtained more than 1,500 points of defense value. His killing move, Feign Death, had been used in the previous battle. It was the embodiment of dead but not dead. It had 2 lives. The first appearance. The 2 bandages hanging from both sides of the dead mummy's abdomen began to move. This was its only attack method, but its attack power was about the same as the 1-star Little Ivan's Masa. Under everyone's gaze, the mummy actually used the bandages to pick up the floating magic ball in the air, wrapped it around it, and pressed it into its stomach. Its stomach was originally bulging, but when it was pressed down, it actually sunk in. More than half of the magic ball was pressed into its stomach just like that. The 2 bandages wrapped a few more rounds, and the magic ball was completely fixed in place. Then it hid in the corner of the arena, back facing the arena, and crouched down with its hands on its head. This was Sarah's other tactical system, the ostrich tactic. Relying on the 2 lives of the dead mummy, it completely protected the magic ball. Once the opponent was unable to break through the defense of the dead mummy, Sarah would be in an invincible position. On the other side, although Aima was slightly slower, she also summoned her magic guide sprite. It was the golden beast that had appeared before. The golden beast's attack power was only 1,300 points, and it was unable to break through the flawless dead mummy. Aima's face was slightly gloomy, and she did not attack rashly. Instead, she silently waited for the cooldown. Both parties appeared to be very calm. A few seconds later, Sarah began to summon and activate the second magic guide card. It was a Sphinx cat card. The appearance of the black hairless cat with golden pupils made the students of the magic school who had some understanding of it cheer. After that, Aima also summoned her second magic guide sprite. It wasn't the gold coin bug, but another treasure chest 777. It was different from the treasure chest monsters that could be seen everywhere in the dungeon. There was a joystick on the side of the treasure chest 777, and there was a square box on the lid that could display 3 numbers side by side. Pulling the joystick would cause the numbers to flip, like a slot machine, from 0 to 9. Once it turned to 777, it would be good luck. Card name, 777 Treasure Chest Monster. Type, Sprite card. Level, Race, Fairy species. Attribute, Normal. Magic power, 700. Attack, 700. Defense, 700. Ultimate skill, 777. As soon as the treasure chest 777 appeared, it automatically pulled the joystick. The 3 numbers on the lid of the treasure chest immediately began to flip. 3 seconds later, the joystick rebounded, and the numbers stopped flipping. 233. The treasure chest monster did not change at all. There was silence for a few seconds. It turned around abruptly and swallowed the magic ball. The treasure chest 777 did not have the excellent defensibility of the dead mummy, but it could run and jump. The first round ended with the confrontation between the 4 magic guide sprites. Unexpectedly, both sides tacitly did not attack. But this was more like the calm before the storm. Second round, 30's draw cards. It's here. AI Ma's eyes flashed. Among the 2 new cards in her hand, one was the gold coin bug. She began to summon without hesitation. The gold coin with wings flew out shakily. Gold parasite. 6 small mechanical legs stretched out from below the gold coin bug and pierced into the spine of the gold beast with a plop. Then the parasite began. Roar, accompanied by the gold beast's roar. The liquid metal that drilled out from both sides of its body formed an even thicker golden armor on its body. Then a pair of golden wings suddenly spread open. Magic power, 1,1300, attack, 1,300 defense, 1,500 1,800. The gold beast that suddenly spread its wings and flew high up. With a flap of its wings, a strong wind blew, and in an instant, it turned into a golden arrow and shot straight out. Sarah raised her finger. In her summoning area, the Anubis, that had just been summoned suddenly growled, and the shadow under its feet suddenly spread rapidly in the direction of the treasure chest monster. The shadow moved first and the hidden shadow ambushed. It was Shadow Hunt. The body of the Anubis followed the shadow and suddenly attacked. Its sharp claws slashed across in an instant, leaving 3 extremely obvious scratches on the body of the 777 treasure chest monster. The magic of the 777 treasure chest instantly decreased by about 200 points. Until then, the gold beast flew above the dead mummy. However, it did not attack with its claws and teeth. Instead, it grabbed the neck of the dead mummy and tried to drag it up into the sky. However, the Sphinx cat arrived in the blink of an eye and stepped on the shadow of the gold beast. Shadow Step was activated. The gold beast froze. Even so, AI Ma did not panic. Sarah's Sphinx cat had been exposed once, and she was already on guard. The summoning speed of the 2 sides was only a little more than a second apart. Coupled with thinking, drawing cards, and the appearance time of the magic elf summoning, such a small difference was almost negligible. In the second summoning of the second round, AI Ma used the golden treasure chest. The Sphinx cat was immediately attracted by the golden light emitted by the treasure chest, and its eyes turned into the Phi symbol that represented the holy coins. Just for this round, the Sphinx cat was controlled by AI Ma and interrupted the shadow step. The gold beast that regained its freedom tore it apart with its claws. The Sphinx cat was left with only a little bit of health. However, a blood magic array suddenly appeared under its feet and absorbed the little bit of health in an instant. The Sphinx cat turned into light and retreated. A grayish-white distorted shadow shot out from the blood magic array and drilled into the body of the gold beast. The mechanical-type gold beast actually let out a painful wail. 2 in 140-100 words. Chapter 176. Everything was going according to plan. AI Ma had predicted that Sarah would use the Sphinx's shadow stomp to restrain the gold beast. Sarah had predicted that AI Ma would use the golden treasure box to help the gold beast get rid of the shadow stomp control. So she had prepared a secret ritual card. Aspen's Words of the Dead. Legend had it that in the ancient times, the great alchemist Aspen was punished by the gods because the items he refined were blasphemous. Aspen had foreseen the coming of the punishment in advance and set up a blood circle to release the soul before falling into hell. Even the god could not escape from Aspen's curse and finally died in endless pain. When the Sphinx's blood spilled on the magic circle, the trigger condition of Aspen's Words of the Dead was met. Aspen's Words of the Dead devoured the last bit of the Sphinx's life and used its soul as a medium to inflict the most painful torture on the gold beast. Even the mechanical-type gold beast could not resist the curse of the dead. Remember, //m-vip can't you? 6. However, AI Ma did not panic when she saw the gold beast's magic power decreasing by 100 points per second. Gold Devour. The ferocious gold beast turned its head and bit the golden treasure box that was used to confuse the Sphinx. The box was made of gold, but it was still full of gold. The gold beast bit the golden treasure box and chewed it hard and swallowed it. Its body immediately burst out with a rich golden light. After all, it was a secret ritual card based on the legend. The gray shadow that shot into the gold beast's body was forced out by the golden light. The gold beast's magic power limit increased by 500 points. The abnormal status was dispelled. Even its defense and attack increased by 100 points each. Magic power, 1,300 1800, attack, 1,300 1400, defense, 1,800 1900. Not only did the gold beast recover, but its attributes were also comparable to the peak of 4 stars. This chain that could not be used in the duel with Dake, due to the summoning speed limit, was finally successfully used in the duel with Sarah. Sarah did not expect Emma to have this hidden card up her sleeve, and her expression changed drastically. She hurriedly looked at the cards in her hand, looking for a solution. On the other side of the battlefield, the Anubis had used Shadow Hunt to scrape off 200 mana points from the 777 treasure chest monster. The Anubis returned to its original speed and began to chase after the 777 treasure chest monster. The golden beast clawed at the death mummy's back, but it only managed to leave 3 bloody scratches. It grabbed the back of the death mummy's neck and flew away. The dead mummy, on the other hand, hugged the magic conducting ball in its stomach tightly with its eyes closed. In short, the battlefield was divided, and neither side could take down the other for the time being. Dida. The second round passed in the blink of an eye. Sarah finally drew the magic card she wanted in the third round. AI Ma's golden beast swooped down and killed the Anubis. Seeing the Anubis turn into a beam of light and return, Sala summoned her second 3-star magic elf. Living Mummy. Card name, Living Mummy. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Undying. Attribute, Dark. Mana, 1200. Attack, 1000. Defense, 1000. Ultimate skill, Rebirth of Darkness. The living mummy's body was still wrapped in bandages, but more of her skin was exposed, including her delicate face, which was already glowing with vitality. The crown on her head and the staff in her hand were indicative of her identity when she was alive. The ultimate skill was a godly skill that could allow a dark elemental magic elf to return to the battlefield. Rebirth of Darkness. The time of death was limited to 3 minutes. The resurrection lasted for 3 minutes. In a duel, it was only 6 rounds. The living mummy, who appeared with one knee on the ground, did not care about the death mummy that was still in the hands of the golden beast. She stomped her staff on the ground, and with a soft chant that sounded like weeping and complaining, a circle of ripples that were as clear as water spread out from the center of the staff. The Sphinx cat that Sarah had placed on the table suddenly trembled violently. She stretched out a finger and pressed on the edge of the magic elf card. Then, the shadow of a cat came out and landed beside the living mummy in the blink of an eye. Meow. The Sphinx cat returned to the battlefield. After hearing the ear-piercing cat's meow, AI Ma's originally victorious expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly took out a white card from her hand. However, after the living mummy completed the Rebirth of Darkness secret skill, she raised her staff high and charged forward. The Sphinx cat followed closely behind. As a 3-star magic elf, the living mummy's 3 measurements were not considered high, but looking down, it was at the top of the 2-star magic elf list. Her movements were abnormally agile, and the treasure chest monster that only knew how to jump and run could not escape at all. She hit its head with her staff, and it immediately screamed in pain. Even though AI Ma knew what would happen if she went down at this time, she still had to order the golden beast to fly down quickly. As expected, the Sphinx cat's skill cooldown reset after it was reborn, and it stepped on the shadow of the golden beast and froze it in place. The next moment, the living mummy used her staff to kill the treasure chest monster, and held the red magic ball in her hand. The white card in AI Ma's hand was not even comparable to the 777 treasure chest monster in terms of 3 measurements, and it had no summoning value. Before the golden beast could break free, Sarah ordered the living mummy to break the red magic ball's life enchantment. 10000. The battle is over. Winner, Sarah Swati. Although this battle had only lasted for a short 2 minutes, both contestants had done their best and used all their trump cards. No matter how unwilling AI Ma was, she had to admit that her deck was completely suppressed by Sarah in terms of strength. Whether it was the Sphinx cat, the death mummy, or the living mummy, they were all beyond her imagination. As expected of the first seat of the Magic Academy, AI Ma gritted her teeth and began to pack up her cards. A temporary defeat would not discourage her, and she would win it back the next time. However, just as she put the golden beast and gold coin bug back into the magic card, she suddenly realized that Sarah did not pack up her cards. Instead, she tiptoed and looked down as if she was looking for something. After searching for a long time, Sarah's eyes suddenly lit up. She finally found the golden-haired young man who had defeated her in the losers group. She did not hide her excitement at all, and directly waved at the young man in front of everyone. When Dake's eyes met hers, she smiled sweetly. "I'm back." Chapter 177. Even though AI Ma knew that this meant, "I fought my way up from the loser's bracket," she still felt that something was wrong. She frowned and walked down from the stage. She felt a little stifled in her heart. She couldn't touch it and couldn't hold it. The students of the Knights Institute didn't make things difficult for her because of her defeat. Instead, they welcomed her warmly. Her performance in this duel alone was enough to make people respect her. AI Ma gradually recovered under Susan and Lucy's comfort. But deep in her heart, she had a stronger desire to win the duel. The last duel of the losers bracket ended just like that. Only the finals were left in the entire competition. The students who watched up to this point were still somewhat unsatisfied. Even though the in-class duels might not be as exciting as the official duels, the contestants were all students of the same grade who frequently interacted with them. Plus, they felt a sense of honor from being in the same school, which made them feel more immersed. The first website was https://m. Vipcanchu, VIP the Knights Institute, and the Fools Institute felt very regretful. The Aristocrats Institute and Magic Devices Institute gradually became more hostile. It was as if there were electric sparks colliding between Doran and Heidi, as if they were about to fight at any time. As for Dark and Sarah, they each found a place to sit down. One replenished his mana, the other adjusted his mana. On the bench in the same position, Dake took out the deck. Now that Sarah's trump cards were mostly exposed, whether it was the Sphinx cat or the living mummy, they were very troublesome. The tactics used to deal with AI Ma clearly couldn't be used. In order to win, he needed to adjust the deck accordingly. Dake first took out the magic cards of the Big Sin series. Pride I, Pride 2, Bliss 3. Among them, Pride 2's cooldown was still not up, but Bliss 3 could be used. Pride I's cooldown should be up before the finals, since Bliss 3's flaw needed Pride I to make up for it. These two magic cards were a must. Correspondingly, Illusory Beast Ibu should also be added to his hand. In addition, Kettle Kettle and Trash Slime that could enter Kettle Kettle's body were also a must. After that, I chose 2 cards from Big Milk Can, Diru Beast, and Fairy Ibu. The rest, after careful consideration, Dake decided to reject both. Magical Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, Kettle Diru Beast, Fairy Ibu Pride I, Bliss 3, hence a set of pure magic cards was formed. There were a total of 7 magic cards, simplified to the extreme. This also reduced the randomness to a minimum. After Dake put away the card, Deanna and Luosi walked over in small steps. Deanna handed him a milk candy and muttered, "You must win." Dake opened the candy wrapper and squeezed the candy into his mouth before saying, "No problem." Luosi smiled and took the candy wrapper from his hand. "Good luck." "Good luck then." Dake calmed himself down and walked towards the arena. The students had already surrounded Arena 1, and the atmosphere was unusually lively. In order to prevent the students from the aristocrats and sorcerers from quarreling, the professors had no choice but to intervene and chase them to the 2 sides of the arena. The students from the aristocrats consciously gathered on the side of the red arena. Next to it was the Knight Academy led by AI Ma. Dark glanced around and walked towards the red team's contestant stage. "Hey Dake," someone suddenly called out. Dark turned his head to look at him and smiled. What's the matter, Doran? Doran's face turned slightly red, then he raised his fist and clenched it hard. Bring my share of good luck. Dake was a little stunned, but he still replied without leaving a trace. Okay. Seeing that Doran had received a response, the other boys beside him hurriedly shouted, We have a share too. Don't forget, there's still me. You must do your best. Keep the champion in the Aristocrats Academy. Dake didn't think that a mere in-class competition would make the little magisters so excited. But when he thought about it carefully, this in-class competition was indeed very different from the first in-class competition. It was more like a formal competition. Moreover, the intensity of the competition was far greater than the first one. For the little magisters, this was perhaps the first duel in their hearts. Dake waved his fist at them and replied, Definitely. He walked onto the arena. The students from the Knight Academy looked at the Aristocrats Academy with envy. In fact, no one didn't want their students to enter the finals, but their AI Ma had already done her best. There's nothing we can do. A loss is a loss. We can only blame ourselves for not doing our best. Next semester, we must do our best. White saw that no one was talking about him, and suddenly felt a little upset. Dake and Sarah walked onto the arena. Professor Cheongsi solemnly said, I know that everyone has been waiting for this moment for a long time. Dake Deming from the Aristocrats Academy and Sarah Swati from the Magisters Academy have both displayed extremely high dueling standards in this competition. Perhaps next semester, you will be able to see them in a real duel. And this has only been 3 months. 3 months ago, they were the same as all of you. They were all new students and knew nothing about magic duels. Today, 3 months later, their standards have already reached a level that some people can't even look up to. I hope that after this competition, everyone can go back and reflect on the reasons for this. In the next semester of the first grade, I hope that more students can join the dueling club and become a member of the competition. Enough with the idle chatter, let the finals begin. As expected of a professor, even a careless person like Pawa Cheong-si could make the students lose interest in just a few words. Dake looked at the silent audience and couldn't help but smile. He put a total of 7 magic cards into the card slot on the table, then looked across and said, You're here. Sarah raised her chin and said proudly, I said so. Dake nodded. Then let us begin the second duel. Sarah. This time the result will be different. Dake. That's not necessarily true. Although the exchange between the two sides seemed calm, there was a hidden sharpness. The atmosphere outside the arena, which had been suppressed by Professor Cheong-si's words, rose again. The boys from the Aristocrats Academy, led by Doran, suddenly shouted, Dake! Dake! Victory! Victory! The unexpectedly uniform slogan made Dake's ears turn red. The students from the Magisters Academy were also excited by the atmosphere. Heidi, with her braided hair, immediately shouted, Sarah! Sarah! Invincible! Invincible! She really didn't feel embarrassed at all. Preparation stage, 30s. Chapter 178. Preparation stage. 30s. Once a duelist stood on the dueling platform, they had to get used to switching their state the moment the countdown started. Although Dake was not a proper duelist, he was already quite experienced in this aspect. His ability to control his emotions had already surpassed most people. Draw 5 cards. The moment his fingertips touched the magic card, a trace of coldness rippled. In the blink of an eye, there were 5 more magic cards in his hand. Fantasy Beast, Ibu, Bliss 3, remember the website, Mvip can't you? 6 Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, Kettle Kettle, 5 out of 7, there's still 1 Pride Eye, and 1 Trash Slime left. Dake thought and had a plan. With the 5 cards in his hand, the safest method was undoubtedly to start with Kettle Kettle. If Sarah had Sphinx Cat, she would definitely start with Sphinx Cat. Then he could only summon Fantasy Beast, Ibu. In order to prevent Fantasy Beast, Ibu from being instantly killed, he could only activate Bliss 3 as soon as possible to evolve it. But relying on Bliss 3 to evolve Moon Ibu, unless it was attacked head-on, it would definitely run out of the arena. Without Pride Eye, this was extremely dangerous. But if it was the other way around, counting the magic spirits that Sarah had, other than the 2-star, Anubis, there were almost no offensive magic spirits. In addition, Dake's summoning skills were much faster than hers. Sigh. Yu. Sometimes having too many choices was a problem. Battle stage, 30s drip. It was as if the notification dripped into his heart. Dake immediately took out Fantasy Beast, Ibu, and summoned it as quickly as possible. Summoning the Fantasy Beast at the start was because he was confident in his summoning speed. It was also because his opponent's summoning speed was slightly slower. Ibu landed on top of the magic ball and pressed it to the ground. Then, it stepped on the magic ball and rolled to the corner of the arena. Since involuntarily leaving the field did not count as giving up, the corner of the field was actually an excellent defensive position. However, before it could succeed, Sarah had already summoned her first magic guide spirit. As expected, it was a sphinx. The corner of Dake's mouth twitched, and he immediately took out the second magic card, Bliss 3. At this time, his normal summoning skill cooldown was over, and he only needed 3.8 seconds to complete the next summoning. That's enough, Ivan. Before she could finish her sentence, Earbook had already put down the magic ball and was running towards the opposite side with her short legs. Its running speed was really not that fast, so much so that the students outside the field could not help but want to carry it and run on its behalf. Sala wasn't surprised by Ivan's suicidal behavior. Dake had already demonstrated Moon Ibu's evolution in their last match, proving to her the potential of this fantasy beast. Do you want to use that enhancement card? After thinking for a while, Sarah immediately commanded, Sphinx, lock onto it. Although she said that, as long as Ivan was not enhanced, she would not hesitate to command the Sphinx to tear it apart. When the furless black cat heard the command, it immediately moved. Its speed was much faster than Ivan's, but it still needed time to start running, accelerate, and approach. During this time, Dake was able to complete the summoning of Bliss 3. The sudden burst of ambiguous light caused the Sphinx to be dazed for a moment. When it recovered, the little Ivan had already evolved into the evil and charming Moon Ibu. Moon Ibu, who had completed its evolution with the help of Bliss 3, was different from the yellow patterns of the normal Moon Ibu. Whether it was the circular pattern itself or the faint glow emitted from its body, they all carried a hint of pink. It softly called out, its nose twitching slightly, and naturally turned towards Dake on the platform. Meow Heartsuit. Then, the charm in its eyes uncontrollably flowed out. It completely ignored the approach of the Sphinx. Good. Both contestants showed a hint of joy on their faces. The Sphinx fiercely stepped on Moon Ibu's shadow with its front paw, activating Shadow Stomp. The pitch-black shadow power climbed onto Moon Ibu's body, completely imprisoning it. Using an uncontrollable Moon Ibu to lure out the Sphinx's Shadow Stomp was not considered a loss in Dake's strategy. But what happened next exceeded Dake's expectations. He had originally planned to let Moon Ibu endure the Shadow Stomp, and with Moon Ibu's strength that far exceeded Kettle's, it would definitely be able to break free in a shorter time. Then he would be able to use Pride Eye, which he had drawn in the next round, to completely control it. During this time, he would be able to summon the next magic guide fairy faster than Sarah, which was Kettle. By keeping the magic guide ball in a corner, even Kettle would be able to protect the magic guide ball for a certain amount of time. And with Sarah's summoning speed, she could only summon 2 magic guide fairies in the first round. Apart from the Sphinx, there was only one left. But Sarah didn't have a 3-star offensive magic guide fairy like the Spirit Bear or the Gold Beast. No matter what she summoned, Kettle would have plenty to spare. Now she only needed to wait for the start of the second round to summon the Trash Slime, and then perform a sacrificial summon. At that time, 2 4-star magic guide fairies, one for defense and one for offense, would shatter the blue magic guide ball without killing the magic guide fairy, and she would undoubtedly obtain victory. But the reality was, after being bound by the Shadow Stomp, Moon Ibu's expression froze, and then he turned to glare at the Sphinx. Meow. The Sphinx resisted Moon Ibu's glare and let out a cry. But in the next moment, Moon Ibu's body exploded with an extremely terrifying evil aura. The Sphinx was corroded by that aura, and its hair instantly stood on end in fear. But if that was all, the Sphinx wouldn't have let go of the shadow stomp. After Moon Ibu's struggle with his muscles was fruitless, he immediately released the wave of evil. But just as the evil aura began to spread, it was abruptly suppressed. Clearly, this type of skill couldn't be used while in the shadow stomp state. But Moon Ivan immediately opened his mouth, and another sure kill skill, Shadow Ball, actually began to slowly gather in his mouth. What was even more shocking was that the shadow energy binding Moon Ibu's body was also gathering in its mouth. Moon Ibu was absorbing the energy of the shadow stomp and turning it into a shadow ball. As the shadow ball grew bigger and bigger, the shadow energy on its body also thinned to the limit. The Sphinx clenched its teeth and held on, but its magic power was quickly consumed, and its output couldn't match the absorption power of the shadow ball. Bang! The sound of something breaking could be heard. Moon Ibu had actually shattered the shadow stomp. He raised his head and looked down at the Sphinx on the ground, and the shadow ball in his mouth suddenly shot out. Boom! The shockwave from the explosion raised smoke and dust. The Sphinx turned into specks of light in the smoke and dust. At this moment, there wasn't a single magic guide fairy that could block Moon Ibu's advance. This scene was not only beyond Dake's expectations, but also beyond everyone's expectations. Dake had only instinctively summoned Kettle Kettle after the cooldown of the usual summoning spell was over. However, the slight distraction still slowed him down. Cool. The Aristocrat Academy boys couldn't help but shout. If Moon Ibu took advantage of this opportunity to attack the blue square magic guide ball, the curtains would immediately fall on this match. Maybe, it really could. But there were no ifs. After Moon Ibu eliminated the abominable obstacle, it quickly calmed down. It licked its paws, washed its face, and then briskly trotted towards the red team's platform. It seemed to be very happy. Even though Dake had summoned Kettle Kettle, it didn't attract its attention. On the blue team's platform, although Sarah was confused, she took the opportunity to summon her second magic guide fairy, the dead mummy. This made her heart, which had almost jumped out of her chest, return to normal. The duel wasn't over yet. It wasn't time to give up yet. After the dead mummy appeared on stage, it immediately used a bandage to stuff the magic guide ball into its stomach. Tick. The first round came to an end. The second round immediately began. The contestants from both sides began to draw their cards. Moon Ibu took the initiative to leave the stage, which was seen as giving up the battle. When Dake summoned Trash Slime from Kettle Kettle's shell, Moon Ibu had already climbed onto the platform and was rubbing its face against Dake's leg. Feeling the soft touch on his leg, Dake's face was stupefied. He began to wait for the cooldown like a robot, and then sacrificed the summoning. The crowd was in an uproar. The students were shocked and puzzled. The professors, on the other hand, had sensed something different. If the spirituality displayed by Dake's magic guide fairies in the previous battle could be explained by tacit understanding, then this time, Moon Ibu undoubtedly displayed a much higher intelligence than normal magic guide fairies. This was inconceivable to most of the archmages. Claire, did you teach him anything? Professor Shierfu couldn't help but ask. Claire shrugged. I did teach him a few things, but not this. The duel was still in progress. Sarah glanced at the other side, but didn't have time to think too much. She then summoned the living mummy, and ordered it to use Dark Rebirth to revive the Sphinx. As long as the Sphinx is revived, it won't matter even if Dake's summoning succeeds. This time, it won't be broken again, right? 3,000 chapters. Chapter 179. The sobbing voice of a young girl drifted in the air. The living mummy placed his staff in front of him, and used the secret technique wholeheartedly. It was indeed that hairless black cat that was resurrected from the magic array. Following the resurrection of the Sphinx, Sarah's summoning area had 3 magic guide fairies. In Dake's summoning area, there was only one kettle pot and the trash slime hidden in it. The strength of both sides didn't seem to be equal. But if it was possible, Sarah wanted to immediately teleport the Sphinx over and lock onto that damn kettle pot. However, not long after the Sphinx was resurrected, Dake's sacrificial summoning spell was completed. With Kettle Pot and trash slime, as sacrifices, sacrificial summoning. Diru Beast. Dake raised his magic guide card high. The white light shot out from the card and the light from the two sacrifices merged into one, forming a mysterious and complicated sacrificial summoning array. 1 second to remember. https://m. Vipcanshu. VIP. That holy and arrogant white cat appeared once again. The Diru Beast shook the holy ring on its tail, its eyes full of arrogance. Although the Diru Beast refined with the fruit of pride and angel's feather as its core wasn't big, it emitted a powerful aura that ordinary 5-star magic guide fairies didn't have. It crossed its arms and observed the entire duel arena, its eyes shining slightly. The students outside the arena looked at this 4-star magic guide fairy and felt that the aura it emitted gave them a very familiar feeling. Yes. Doran hammered his hand and suddenly said, "It gives off the same feeling as Dake sometimes." After being reminded by him, many students immediately recalled. A little fatty said in astonishment, "Could it be that a magic guide fairy's appearance is similar to a magus?" Doran, "It's temperament. Little fatty, oh." Doran observed the situation and said, "No. Although Dake has summoned a 4-star magic guide fairy, with that black cat, he will be at a disadvantage if there's only one, just like AI Ma. Also, he needs to pay attention to that blood array. The situation isn't good." What made him more worried was that Dake only had 2 cards left in his hand. Without enough cards, it was difficult to deal with unexpected situations. However, after the Diru Beast finished observing, it stomped its foot and instantly shot out. Its speed was extremely fast and it was aiming at the most threatening Sphinx cat. "It's coming," Sarah suddenly reminded it. "Shadow step." The Sphinx widened its eyes and waited for the Diru Beast's shadow to approach. Then it stomped down. However, the Diru Beast suddenly stopped a few meters away from them. The Sphinx subconsciously looked at its face and was suddenly attracted by its pair of clear cat eyes. Woo meow. The Sphinx's consciousness was thrown into chaos after just a brief moment of eye contact. The Diru Beast's eyes emitted a red light, and the corners of its mouth curved into a faint smile. Cat's eyes emit light from the eyes, causing the target to fall into confusion. There is a chance that the target will attack you. Whether it was the Sphinx cat or the 2 mummies, they were emitting a stench that made it feel abnormally disgusted. If it didn't know their abilities beforehand, the Diru Beast would have rushed up and sent them to heaven with its claws. Thinking of this, the Diru Beast slightly raised its head and looked at Sarah on the blue side's platform. Its eyes were full of ridicule. Sarah was holding Aspen's words of the dead tightly. She suddenly had the absurd feeling of being seen through by a cat. It can't be, right? It can't be. The Diru Beast didn't give her any chance to use the secret instrument card. It glanced at the living mummy not far away, and the living mummy was so frightened that it took a few steps back. Then in a flash it appeared in front of the other dead mummy. The dead mummy had its back to the field, and was quietly peeking behind. Suddenly, its vision darkened, and its decaying head fell to the ground. Even though it had a defense of 1,600 points, it was still very weak. The Diru Beast's attack was 2,400 points. The 2 sides weren't on the same level. However, the death mummy was indeed an undying species. Even if its head fell to the ground, it could still struggle at death's door. Its mana is not depleted. The Diru Beast flipped the death mummy's body over. It stretched out its finger and lightly cut the bandage on its abdomen. Then it reached out and scooped up the blue magic conducting ball. Meanwhile, the Diru Beast casually raised his hand and blocked the living mummy's staff attack. The living mummy had obviously been ordered by Sarah to die. But of course, the Diru Beast wouldn't give him the chance. With a wave of its hand, it pushed the living mummy away and retreated quickly with the blue magic conducting ball in one hand. In the blink of an eye, it had returned to the red square summoning area, and was spinning the blue magic ball like a basketball on its fingertips. Inside and outside the arena, there was complete silence. The Diru Beasts avoided all of the traps by going back and forth. There was not the slightest bit of sluggishness in its movements, and the rich expressions on its face showed its high IQ that was not inferior to that of humans. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, They wouldn't have believed that it was a magic guide spirit. Professor Erfa's eyelids twitched. He questioned Claire again. You really didn't teach it this? Claire was expressionless. I can't teach it. Even her own magic guide spirits, except for a few, had only reached the intelligence level of 3. 0 was a division standard for intelligence levels. Creatures below 3. 0, in the knowledge of magi, did not have a complete thinking circuit. They were classified as deficient intelligence. Only when they reached 3. 0 and above could they be considered to have spiritual intelligence. They could think completely and have the ability to learn. But above that, there were even more grades. The 2 4-star magic guide spirits summoned by Dake were clearly above 3. 0. That was the lifelong pursuit of most spirit magi. How did he do it? The professors present couldn't help but ask. In the arena, the Diru beast finally stopped playing. It raised its head and looked at Sarah on the blue square. It poked the life barrier on the magic conducting ball twice, as if saying, "What other moves do you have? Just use them." At that moment, Sarah suddenly realized that she had been humiliated by a magic guide spirit. This was a rare experience. Some people would probably never experience this feeling in their entire lives. Sarah was not a gentle little lamb. She immediately summoned the magic bullet curse and threw the magic bullet at the white cat. Bang! Blue magic conducting ball. Magic power, 1900. Sore throat, fever medicine still alive begging for monthly votes. The weather is turning cold. Wear more clothes. Eat less things that are too hot. Woo. Chapter 180. On the red platform. Day couldn't help but facepalm. At this point, the competition was already over. With the blue magic conducting ball in its hand, the Dilu beast could break the life barrier at any time. On the other hand, Sarah's deck was actually quite helpless against this kind of high-level magic elf with its own control skills. Even if she sent her own fairy to die, the Dilu beast would have to play with her. In fact, Dake didn't give the Dilu beast any instructions. Everything was done by itself. Disclaimer. Saraswati clearly knew that the outcome was already decided. The reason why she summoned the magic bullet curse was to vent her anger. Website. https://m. Vipcanchu. VIP, but she didn't think that this magic bullet would make her even angrier. Calm down. Calm down. Think about what father will do. Sala forcefully moved her gaze away from the Dilu beast. Her mind was filled with the proverbs that the ancient sages had told her. Something like, a gentleman takes revenge all day long. Something like 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west, a dragon slayer becomes an evil dragon. Woo, what the hell are they talking about? Sala finally raised her head and used all her strength to glare at Dake. She didn't care whether he saw it or not. She put away her magic conducting cards and recalled her 3 fairies. I, Sala, will never forget the humiliation I suffered today. She turned her head to Professor Cheongsi and said, Professor, I admit defeat. Professor Jones laughed heartily and announced, That's right. This competition is officially over. The champion is Aristocrat House Dake Dimung. Thunderous applause sounded. The Dilu beast's actions were abominable in Sala's eyes. But from the perspective of the audience, they felt that this fairy was too strong. The competition was full of twists and turns. Although it wasn't particularly intense, it was full of psychological warfare. It was also remarkable. Whether it was Dake's Moon Ibu or Dake's Dilu beast, they all left a deep impression on the audience. When Dake came down from the stage, he was naturally welcomed by the cheers of his classmates. Just as he had said before he went on stage, he had successfully won the championship with the help of his classmates. As for the 5,000 credits awarded to the champion, to him, it was simply a timely help. I finally have money to buy Christmas presents. Dake looked at the students from the aristocratic academy whom he rarely interacted with. He wondered if he should give everyone a gift, such as chocolate or something. Chocolate wasn't expensive anyway. 1 credit could buy a large piece of chocolate. Dake, what are you thinking about? Deanna patted his shoulder. Dake said, Are you thinking about how to use the 5,000 credits? Deanna pouted. Luosi smiled and said, "This time the top 10 will all be rewarded with credits, right?" Deanna was happy again. What a simple child. Dake was actually a little envious. This time, even the award ceremony for the in-class competition was very formal. The top 10. In fact, only 8 students were gathered in the middle of the stadium to be encouraged and rewarded by the deans of each school. In the end, as usual, the champion gave a speech. Dake walked to the front and looked at the students who were crying piteously for food. Compared to the last in-class competition, the champion this time was obviously more credible. It seemed that more people were listening attentively. Professor Cheong-si asked, "Dimeng, how do you feel about winning the championship for the second time?" Dake smiled and said, "It's the same as last time. It's an honor. The students have improved a lot. I always feel like I'll lose if I'm not careful." Professor Cheong-si said, "This isn't something a person who has won all the time should say. Modesty is a virtue, but too much modesty." Dake interrupted, "Professor, I'm telling the truth." Professor Cheong-si didn't get angry. She paused and changed the topic. Then, like last time, "Do you mind sharing your learning experience with the students?" Dake smiled and said, "I'm happy to improve with the students." Professor Cheong-si pursed her lips and said, "Then it's your time now." Dake nodded and looked at the students who were lined up in 4 square formations. He organized his thoughts and said, "I remember last time, I mainly talked about the importance of moderation. I also talked about the balance between work and rest. I think that should have helped some of the students." Aima nodded vigorously. Dake continued, "Then this time let's change the topic. Let's talk about desire. Desire is the driving force behind human actions. Whether it's eating, sleeping, or reproducing, they are all derived from the desire to survive. Only by facing one's desire can one move forward. Some people think that desire and moderation conflict with each other, but that's not the case. I think that they complement each other. Facing desire and acting on it is one of the reasons why I'm standing here." Dake never lied. In both of his speeches, he spoke about his true feelings. This was the so-called learning experience. He didn't think that what he said was right, but he didn't want to be perfunctory. It was still the same sentence. The truth was already here. It was up to him whether he took it or not. Know it and practice it, or know it and not practice it. It was up to him. But Dake probably didn't expect it. This time, the one who really listened to his words was White Gouda. White's eyes were filled with confusion. Facing desire. What is my desire? Dake shortened his speech to less than 10 minutes this time. He finished everything before some of the students yawned. After that, Professor Jones affirmed his speech and complimented him with a few words. The competition within the class could be considered to have come to an end. Then, the first-year students rushed to the cafeteria at the same time. After dinner, they dispersed. Today was the 3rd Friday before Christmas. Because Christmas was coming, Traveler Street was already decorated with Christmas decorations. It was said that there was a circus performance. So many people couldn't wait to rush to Traveler Street. The atmosphere of Christmas was getting stronger. Dake rejected Deanna and Luosi's invitation and went back to his dorm alone. He didn't forget to draw today's bliss. Today was December 8th. There was 1 point of pride in the worm branch. Bliss was full of 10 points. 10 points of bliss was enough to make a new bliss 3. After today's in-class competition, Dake felt that the bliss 3, made from the goddess, Bliss, was really inconvenient. He needed a bliss 3 of his own. In addition, the Pride 2 in his hand was actually a defective product. It had a cooldown of 180 minutes, and was extremely inconvenient. In the next 2 days he could draw Pride. 3 points of Pride could make a new Pride 2. At critical moments he could also use it alternately. Chapter 181. After making all the preparations, Dake immediately began the crafting of Bliss 3. The crafting of the Great Sin Series Magic Conducting card was actually a relatively simple type. After all, its essence was the crafting of the Emotion card. Dake was familiar with the process and quickly used 10 points of bliss to craft a golden pink magic conducting card. As for whether the crafting of this magic conducting card was successful, and what was its quality, it still needed to be experimented. It's time to work. Dark injected a trace of magic power into his school card to summon the little fiendish beasts that were still wandering outside. Immediately, they flew back with a plop sound. "My dear master, look at what I brought." Following the arrival of the little devil beast, a strong meaty aroma suddenly squeezed into the room. "Remember the website, MVIP, can't you?" VIP Dake turned around and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This kid actually got a roasted turkey from God knows where. Unfortunately, even if you get the gem meat, it's useless. The little devil beast seemed to have just felt the strange atmosphere, and its flapping wings suddenly froze, and its gaze slowly turned to the pink magic conducting card in Dake's hand. "No way, sir." It had been a while since the last experiment, and it seemed that the little devil was addicted to picking flowers and gradually forgot about it. Dake felt the need to remind it of the enjoyment of being dominated. Meow meow meow, moo, ing, the cat grass, cow grass, and fox grass sounded at the right time. The little devil beast turned its head and glared at them fiercely, and when it turned back, it was already trying to flatter them. "Ah, master, haven't we already experimented with this pink color?" "Dake, it's a new category. Put the turkey aside first, come here." The little devil beast. A woman's mouth. Underscore? In fact, the little devil beast was already used to the identity of an experimental lab rat, and it was just being pretentious instinctively. After it put the turkey aside, it flew to the experiment table and lay down like a salmon waiting to be sliced. Dake rubbed its chin, abdomen, and used his index and middle fingers to grab the new magic card. He swiped it lightly in front of him and activated the usual summoning spell. "In the name of Dake Dimming, I summon you." In an instant, the entire bedroom was filled with pink light. Meow meow meow, moo moo moo, ing. Even the cries of the kitty grass, milkweed, and fox grass became soft. As for the little fiend that was the main target of the spell, it started to absorb the pink light around it after the skull pattern on its head was replaced by the great sin emblem that symbolized bliss. A huge emblem appeared above his head and slowly rotated in the air. Under the illumination of the emblem, the little demonic beast's life essence began to change drastically. Cat ears and a cat tail grew out from the luminous body, hidden in the strong light. Dake knew that this Bliss 3 was a success. The little demonic beast's evolved form was still the Heidi Road beast, but it was obvious that this Heidi Road beast was more rational. Then, Dake was pushed down by the Heidi Road beast. In this case, the previous Bliss 3 will be temporarily changed to Bliss 3, Moon, to distinguish. After looking at the Heidi Road beast that was facing the wall and reflecting, Dake wrote the word controllable on his notebook. Other than being controllable, this Heidi Road beast was no different from the Heidi Road beast that was evolved with Bliss 3, Moon. Even the ultimate skill was the kitty cat fist and dangerous love. The duration of the evolution was 17 minutes, which was about the same as the standard value of 15 minutes. "Okay, don't make a fuss. Let's eat the chicken." Dake put down his notebook and reached out to grab the Heidi Road beast's underarm and lifted it up. The only thing left to record was Bliss 3 as cooldown. He could continue after eating the roast chicken. In just 56 minutes, Bliss 3 as cooldown was finished. It was even shorter than Pride Eye as cooldown of 59 minutes. This meant that the quality of this Bliss 3 was quite good. According to Dake's analysis, the effect lasted for 15 minutes and had a cooldown of 60 minutes. This should be the standard value of a Great Sin Series Magic Guide card. Overall, his luck wasn't bad, but the highlight of the night had just begun. Dake took out Illusory Beast, Ibu, from his card pack. He had previously guessed the difference between Bliss 3, Moon, and Bliss 3. He thought that the new Bliss 3 could allow Illusory Beast, Ibu, to evolve into Illusory Beast, Fairy Ibu. And now it was time to verify his conjecture. The exciting part is about to begin. The little demonic beast sitting on the table had a greasy chicken leg in its raised claws, and the corner of its mouth curved. It loved to see other magic guide fairies being experimented on. What are you looking at?" Ibu, who had just been summoned, tilted its head and looked at the little devil beast with an innocent face. Little devil beast. I want to see you broken. Ibu. Little devil beast. Ibu ignored the little devil beast and happily rubbed against Dake's finger. Evolution is so good. Why are there always idiots who don't understand? Magic Guide Summon. Dake activated Bliss 3. The light released by Bliss 3 was absorbed by the Bliss 3 emblem. Ibu raised its head slightly and the Bliss emblem on its forehead released a charming halo. Surrounded by the light of the fans, Ivan completed his evolution. Ibu Fairy Ibu. It really is Fairy Ibu. Dake was excited that his conjecture had been verified. Apart from the color of the ribbon, there wasn't much difference between this Fairy Ibu and the 4-star magical elven card Fairy Ibu. But looking through the appearance to see the essence, the difference between the two was huge. Dake's magic power that he injected into Illusory Beast, Fairy Ibu, received feedback. Card name, Illusory Beast Fairy Ibu. Type, Fairy card. Race, Bird Beast. Attribute, Fairy magic power, 1900. Attack, 1700. Defense, 1300. Ultimate skills, Fairy skin. Loud sound. Destructive beam. It could be seen. Illusory Beast, Fairy Ibu, and Fairy Ibu. Stats were the same, but there were 2 different ways to distribute their ultimate skills. There were still 3 ultimate skills, which meant that this was an orange card. Fairy skin was a hidden characteristic of Fairy Ibu and had a completely different effect from Charming Body. Fairy skin changes a normal attribute's ultimate skill to a fairy attribute, increasing the power by 2 times. This meant that any normal attribute's ultimate skill in the hands of Illusory Beast, Fairy Ibu, would be able to unleash 2 times the power of a normal attribute skill. As for its next 2 sure kill skills, they were both sure kill skills with normal attributes. Loud sound makes a loud sound and creates a huge vibration to attack. Destructive beam shoots a strong beam of light to attack the opponent. In the next round, the opponent will not be able to move. Loud sound's power was 90, after the upgrade, it was 108. And Moon Force's power was only 95. As for destructive beam, it was a super ultimate skill with a power of 150. With the addition of Fairy skin, destructive beam's power was as high as 180. What did 180 mean? It was almost twice the power of Moon Force. Without a doubt, this was a super strong attack pet. As for the flaw of not being able to move in the next round, with 1 shot, perhaps even the ashes would be blown away. What was there to talk about? After carefully thinking about it, Dake suddenly had an idea and summoned Fairy Ibu. Woo! Hugging the 2 Fairy Ibus who were like twins, Dake enjoyed the luxury of hugging one on each side. Other than almost being dismembered, everything else was fine. The next day, Saturday, Dake first went to Traveler's Street to buy a new card bag and replenish some necessary experimental supplies. Then he went to the cat flower shop to shop around before returning to the dormitory. Afternoon, he brought his books and went to Professor Claire's dormitory to continue learning the prerequisite knowledge for making the zoo magic conducting card. Although Claire was curious about how his magic conducting fairy was made, she did not ask too much. For a magus, any kind of original creation method was extremely precious, not to mention this kind of core secret method that could increase the intelligence level of the magic conducting fairy. Whether it was as a Shungmalian professor or as Dake's teacher, Claire felt that she had an obligation to help him keep this secret. Fortunately, the war had ended, and the number of crazy magi who would do anything to increase their combat power had decreased by a lot. In addition, Dake's identity was sufficiently noble, so he did not have to worry too much about being targeted. What he was afraid of was embezzlement. "I say, Dake, is Auntie good to you?" Claire asked, propping up her chin. Dake. "Auntie Claire, you're too close to me." Claire muttered. "There's something even closer." Dake, Claire. "It's nothing. You should know that the line of beast sages and the line of spirit magi have a master-disciple relationship. Spirit summoning is also a compulsory course for us." Dake. "Of course I know that. In fact, I want to make the zoo in order to form a bond with the magic conducting fairy. Claire nodded. You've already said this. But here, I have to remind you. Dake. Claire said solemnly. Intelligence level 3. 0 is a dividing line. Magic conducting fairies at this level have a complete thinking circuit, and are pure enough. It is relatively easy to form a bond with them. Dake. Claire. But the human heart is complicated. Magic conducting fairies are the same. Once their intelligence level exceeds 3. 0 by too much, then to form a bond with them, you have to put in the same amount of effort. In other words, for a magus, the higher the intelligence level of the magic conducting fairy, the better it was. So since ancient times, spirit magi have been pursuing magic conducting fairies with intelligence level 3. 0 not 4. 0 or 5. 0. Dake couldn't help but open his mouth in surprise. This was the first time he had heard this. This wasn't good news for his path as a spirit magus. Who knew how high the intelligence level of his magic conducting fairy was? Claire continued. But don't worry too much. The higher the intelligence level, the more freedom the magic conducting fairy has. As long as you successfully form a bond, they will bring you unimaginable surprises. Dake, for example? Claire was expressionless. For example, when you don't want to wake up, it will crawl out of the magic conducting card and pinch your nose. Dake. The time to concentrate on studying was always short. Dake took the time to go back to the dormitory in the evening and drew a drop of pride, for the first time in a long time. Then on Sunday night he asked for leave and drew the last drop of great sin, which was pride. After 2 draws, in addition to the original 1 drop, it was a total of 4 drops. 7 p.m. Dake prepared all the materials for the experiment, and began to make a new Pride 2. It had been a long time since the first Pride 2 was made, and it wasn't an exaggeration to say that the finished product he had now was a defective product. Whether it was the method of making or the materials used, they weren't good enough. There were only 2 grades of blank magic conducting cards on the market, which were 10 credits and 50 credits respectively. Further up were the very expensive items. The first Pride 2 used a 10-credit magic conducting card, which was the biggest reason for its low quality. And this time, Dake naturally used a 50-credit magic conducting card. The new Pride 2, made from this, could be seen from the color. He still only used 3 points of Pride, leaving 1 point. After that, he used these 2 Pride 2 cards for comparison experiments. First, he used it on the little demon beast. In the end, other than its chin being raised a little higher, there wasn't any difference. Dake thought for a while and could only put his hopes on Fantasy Beast, Ibu. Old Pride 2. Duration 13 minutes, CD 180 minutes. New Pride 2. Duration 18 minutes, CD 55 minutes. After recording all the experimental data, Dake summoned Fantasy Beast Ibu. Ibu was more reasonable than the little demon beast, and accepted Dake's pride, without any resistance. Little Ibu, with the pride emblem on its forehead, slowly climbed down from Dark's knees and jumped onto the window. Only its butt was left on the window as it looked at the night scenery outside the window with fox grass. Dake picked up the Fantasy Beast Ibu magic conducting card and checked the data. Card name, Fantasy Beast. Type, Sprite card. Level, XXX race, Bird Beast. Attribute, normal. Magic power, 500. Attack, 700. Defense, 300. Ultimate skills, imitation, circle eyes, help. It went from a purple card to an orange card. This was undoubtedly a huge leap for Ibu. And the new skill it learned was help. Help. Clap your hands and cheer for the target to enter a state of help. The next ultimate skill of a magic conducting sprite in a state of help is increased by 50%. Ibu had become a nice monster. 2 in 1/4/100. His fever had not subsided, and his cheeks and throat were extremely painful. Every time he ate, it was as if he was going to die. Chapter 182. Come clap your hands. Under Dake's order, Ibu sat on the windowsill and clapped his hands in disgust. The light representing help appeared from his body and gradually became stronger. Then, like a bubble, It disappeared with a pop. It doesn't work? Dake felt very regretful. It seemed that Ibya's help couldn't be used on him. But then again, nice monsters should be hiding in the back. Why would he go up himself? After packing up the experiment tools, Dark read a book for a while and practiced the underworld spiritual art for an hour. After that, he fell into a deep sleep. There were only 2 weeks left until the end of the semester. In the following days, the professors didn't teach any new knowledge. They mainly focused on reviewing and consolidating. 1 second to remember https://m. VIP can't you? VIP. Apart from the dual class, all other classes had big homework that the students were required to complete and hand in by December 20th. This big homework would be used as a reference for the students' grades for the semester. The students who were originally excited and out of control due to the arrival of the holidays and Christmas were like wild horses that had been reined in. They were already lethargic at such a young age. Bound by the heavy homework, they even forgot to find a dance partner and prepare gifts for a long time. It wasn't until the 5th day of the new week, on the afternoon of December 15th, that the festive atmosphere on Traveler Street hit them in the face. Only then did the students realize that there was only 1 week left until Christmas. Therefore, the topic of Christmas exploded like crazy. Just like Halloween, Dake began to receive confession letters again. Compared to the more childish first-year students, a mature and steady peer like him was obviously more popular with the girls. Not to mention, just a week ago, he won the class competition and was in the limelight. On Friday night, he even received an invitation to a second-year dance party. A girl from the same tower as him put a white letter with a heart on it on his desk in the common room. She said that it was an invitation for her best friend. Dake opened the invitation and looked at it. He was a bit worried. Although it was called an invitation, it was actually a confession letter. The letter was filled with poems and thoughts of a literary girl. She was the type that he did not reject. But how could she reject him without losing her manners? Claire's after-school classes ended last night. Although Dake still had many questions to answer, as a professor, Claire had her own responsibilities. She would be very busy in the next week. And as for whether or not he would stay on, or even take over the position of the Dean of the Fools, she still had many things to think about. In the 10 years after the war, apart from staying in the Duke's residence for a long time, Claire had no fixed residence. Wherever she went, she would fulfill someone's wish to travel around. When the war is over, I'll walk around alone, look at the mountains and rivers, and see if the things recorded in the books are really as magical as they seem. Reverse waterfalls, inverted giant trees, a mysterious underground world, an unreachable island in the sky. She had already walked too many roads. Perhaps it was time to stop. Rest for a while. He sorted out his gains over the past 2 years. Publish another book and earn some royalties. He couldn't always be said to be a freeloader. Let's discuss it with her when we get back. White and Luo Boat, who were still in confinement, had to devote all their attention to their homework under the supervision of their instructor, Ms. Gliss. In their world, there were no Christmas balls or Christmas presents. The confinement would last until the evening of December 23rd, until Ms. Gliss left the academy. December 24th was their last day. Perhaps that was Professor Shi-Erfa's kindness. Otherwise, they would die on their first Christmas in the academy because they only received gifts and did not return them. The Shungmalian weather was getting colder and colder. From time to time, there would be junior magicians who would go to the infirmary to seek special cough medicine because of a cold. Sister Kalian's work became very busy. It was not because there were more people who caught a cold, but because there were revenge incidents in the academy, just like every Christmas before the arrival of the year. Not everyone could accept rejection. There were as many pranks and revenge as there were stars in the sky. For example, making a pimple on a person's face the size of a finger. For example, making a person's hair grow continuously. Or turning a person's skin into a rich dark purple color. Sister Kalian had to deal with those strange pranks that did not cause any real harm. Today's Christmas, I can only stay in the academy. Dake began to think of Christmas presents on Friday night. In the past Christmas, he was the one who only received gifts and did not return them. This year, of course, it would not be like that again. Not returning gifts at Christmas was a child's privilege, and the students who entered the Shungmalian had already surpassed that age group. He sat in the common room and wrote down the list of gifts in his notebook. D. Analuo C. Panduola Senior Professor Ka Zaire Professor Claire Professor, Lily Little Devil Beast, AI Myovet. In addition to the chocolate gift box for each student of the Aristocratic Academy, AI Ma and Yalvet were also included in the list of gifts. In any case, he had received a gift from AI Ma during the study of the murals, so he had to return some gifts. As for the gift for his mother, he could ask Professor Claire to send it back. Before Christmas, most of the professors would leave the academy to spend Christmas with their families. Dake had also spent Christmas with Yalvet in the past, and this year could be said to be the first time he spent it alone. I don't know if I don't count, but when I do, I'm shocked. There are as many as 9 gifts that need to be carefully prepared. Let's take it one by one. Deanna, although she may very likely want to receive a candy gift, I happen to have a core material that suits her. Luo, maybe I can get a signed edition of Claire's Weekly Travels? Senior sister, think about it again. Professor Ka Zaire, he never lets himself relax. Give him a novel. The Old Knight of the Border is good. Professor Li, let's go to Traveler's Street tomorrow to see if there is any good wine. Little Devil Beast, pick a scarf. It can also be used as a hat. AI Ma, I don't know what she has been reading recently. I can give her a box of homemade apple juice. Lastly, Mother, hey, I don't know if she will be interested in snapdragons. Chapter 183. Just kidding. I almost forgot about Aunt Claire's gift. Just like Professor Li, how about giving her a bottle of good wine? As for Mother's gift, I'll give her a pot of normal cat grass. You can't buy this outside. The next Saturday, Dake took a bath after his morning exercise, drank a glass of milk, and went to Traveler's Street with the little fiend. The streets were decorated with colorful decorations, and there were all kinds of colorful lights hanging on the eaves. The dolls and billboards in front of the shops were all wearing Christmas hats. The festive atmosphere came faster than expected. In the small garden in the middle of the food street, an unfinished Christmas tree was already standing there. If one came at night, they would see a lot of couples here. The website was https://m. VIP can't you? VIP Dake avoided the peak period, and came early in the morning. He was going to return before noon. When he passed by the candy shop, he thought about it and bought a Christmas candy gift bag. After he left the shop, he had an extra Christmas card in his hand. It seemed that this was a joint activity on Traveler's Street, and the shop owner would give out Christmas cards depending on the partner. This saved him the effort of buying alone. Then he spent some time in 2 bookstores to find Claire's Weekly Travels and Old Knight of the Border. Claire's Weekly Travels was unexpectedly popular, and the demand couldn't meet the demand. Therefore, he bought one for himself, and wanted to see where Aunt Claire had been all these years. As for Old Knight of the Border, because it was the autobiography of a knight after the war, and he wasn't a famous person, the sales weren't very high. He only found 1 copy in an old bookstore. He was quite lucky. Pata, Pata. The little fiend deliberately flapped its wings and flew in front of Dake. Because Dake forbade it from speaking in front of others, it could only express itself through sign language. Okay, I'll go by yours. Dake sighed and showed a helpless smile. The little fiend suddenly danced in the air. Dake said, "But you can't open it until Christmas." The little fiend nodded desperately. Who doesn't have a sense of ritual? Of course, I, the little devil, have them too. This was the first time the beast had received a festive gift. Of course, it had to be opened in a grand manner on the eve of Christmas. Hoo. The little demonic beast couldn't help but laugh. When they arrived in front of a clothing store, the little fiendish beast stopped at the entrance and did not enter. Dake knew that it wanted to maintain its surprise, so it went in alone. As the weather was getting colder, the students' demand for scarves and gloves was increasing. At the same time, there were more shops selling these products. Dake chose carefully and finally chose a thick coffee-colored scarf. In short, the price was not a problem. The quality had to be good. He asked the waitress to wrap it up and put it in a gift box. The young lady couldn't help but tease. Why? Is this a Christmas present for your little girlfriend? Dake smiled and said, No. The young lady asked curiously. Then who are you giving it to? Dake, Ibois. After walking out of the store, Dake raised the gift box and waved it in front of the little fiend beast. The little fiend beast stared for a long time and resisted the urge to open it immediately. It wanted to use the next week to guess the color and style of the scarf. After settling the most important scarf, Dake went to the tavern where he bought the fairy wine last time. But it seemed like he came too early. This shabby tavern in the corner of Traveler's Street was still closed. Then I'll come back later. After thinking about it, Dake decided to buy some bottles and gift boxes for fruit juice. Of course, there were also apples. The gift for Ai should be the cheapest, but it required a lot of effort. After buying everything, he didn't continue shopping. Instead, he went back to the dorm, because there were too many things in his hands. Hey Dake, you're back already? As soon as Dake entered the tower, he met Deanna and Luosi who were fully armed. Although there were still 2 weekends before Christmas, the girls obviously preferred to prepare beforehand. Besides, 2 weekends might not even be enough for them to shop. Deanna and Luosi were going to shop and pick out Christmas gifts. Now that Diana was rich and imposing, her voice was much louder when she spoke. Dake raised the things in his hands and said, I still have something to do. Deanna had to swallow the invitation she was about to say, Oh okay. Dake went back to the dorm, put away the gifts, washed his hands, and began to make the apple juice. The process of making the apple juice was very simple. The main thing was that it took time. With the help of Kettle, Dake spent the whole morning making the apple juice. He added special spices to keep the apple juice fresh, and sealed it one by one. Finally, he put it in a gift box and pushed it to the corner. Done. Dake stood up and suddenly felt very fulfilled. He shook his head, packed his things, and went to the cafeteria for lunch. Then he went to Traveler's Street again. Traveler's Street was obviously more crowded in the afternoon. People were laughing and talking everywhere. Dake carefully felt the atmosphere of the approaching holiday while thinking about what to buy. He hadn't decided on the type of wine and the type of catnip grass. He had no idea what to give to Chinyushan. Soon he arrived at the catnip flower shop. His eyes were immediately attracted by a ragdoll cat. But after playing with the cat, he walked out empty-handed again. If he really gave her a pot of catnip grass, the fat cat at home would probably be unhappy. Why don't I wrap the Crimson Star medal as a gift? Dake couldn't help but mutter. When he came to the small tavern again, the door was already open. Dake pushed the door open and saw the owner of the tavern, Uncle Simmons. Simmons looked like he was in his 40s. His ears were long and pointed. He wasn't a fairy but a male fairy. Dake didn't understand why this tavern, which rarely opened, needed to exist. However, Simmons' winemaking skills were genuine. A treasure like the fairy wine was not something that anyone could brew. You again? Uncle, is there any more fairy wine? Dake glanced inside. Sure enough, there wasn't a single customer. Simmons hurriedly waved his hand and said, No, I'll drink the rest myself. Setting up a tavern and selling wine exclusively for him to drink, that would be awesome. Dake wasn't discouraged. Then is there any other wine? I want to buy 2 bottles as a Christmas present. Simmons, or the sage from last time? Dake nodded. And Professor Li. Simmons paused for a moment before saying, Hold on. Then he went into the room. When he came out, he had 3 bottles of wine in his hands. He would continue writing after making some porridge. Chapter 184. Here, this is the wine you wanted. Simmons shook the 3 bottles of wine in his hand and placed them on the table one by one. What kind of wine are these? Dake asked curiously. Simmons chuckled and picked out a bottle. He said, Take your time. First, this bottle is Morning Dew. Morning Dew? Dake sized it up carefully. This bottle of wine named Morning Dew was contained in a transparent bottle. The wine was light green in color and had the feeling of green apple juice. However, it was clearer and slightly more transparent than green apple juice. This made it feel dreamy. Don't look at it. No matter how you look, you won't be able to understand it, Simmons said nonchalantly. Anyway, this bottle is for little Lily. Chenghui 1,000 credits. Dake. Remember the URL. MVIP can't you? VIP. He instinctively felt that Simmons was joking. One had to know that he had only spent 100 credits to buy the fairy essence wine. Who would be able to bear the sudden increase of 10 times? However, Simmons ignored his shock and continued to pick out the second bottle, saying, "This bottle is 8 Desolation. Only the Sage of Beasts is worthy of it." The so-called 8 Desolation wine was actually a bottle of strong wine that was as red as fire. Even without opening the bottle, Dake could feel the fire hidden within. It was probably not something that an ordinary wine lover could endure. Simmons continued, "This bottle of 8 Desolation hasn't been able to find a buyer for many years. Since it's a coincidence today, I'll give it to you for free. 2,000 credits. Dake, what kind of free gift was this? Simmons didn't care. He finally picked up the third bottle and put it down. A trace of gentleness flashed through his eyes. This third bottle of wine is called Green Seed. It's just a bottle of fruit wine made from green seed fruit. Green seed fruit was a type of green fruit that was very similar to plums. It was sour and sweet and could be used to make wine. Among the 3 types of wine, only green seed wine was very common, and was also relatively cheap. Putting it together with the other 2 types of wine would give people a feeling of incompatibility. However, it was precisely because of this that it was particularly eye-catching. Dake immediately realized that it was the main character of these 3 bottles of wine. Then, as expected, Simmons picked up the green wine and said solemnly, "I know it's hard for the first years to come up with 3,000 credits, but as long as you promise me one thing, these 3 bottles of wine will be yours." Dake asked curiously, "Tell me first." Simmons tapped his middle finger and said, "Since you want to give wine to 2 professors, it should be normal to add 1 more, right?" After leaving the tavern, Dake wanted to say something but hesitated. "Forget it. Just take it as a favor." He took the 3 bottles of wine and walked into the street. Wine alone was not enough. There had to be gift boxes for wine, and each box had to be stuffed with a Christmas card. Dake strolled around Traveler's Street for a long time before he finally found a gift box suitable for wine. After that, he went to the candy store and bought 36 chocolate gift boxes. In order to bring these chocolates back, Dake had no choice but to summon the Dilu beast to help. Before dusk came, he finally rushed back to the dormitory. A huge number of gifts were piled up in the corner like a small mountain. He packed the 3 bottles of wine in the dormitory and felt a little relieved. Now only the gifts for Mother and Senior are left. Dake thought for a while. He simply sat down and wrote a letter to Yvette. The first time he left home, the kindness of the professors, the friendship of the students, the compact and fulfilling life in the academy, the thirst for knowledge, the thrill and excitement of the moon god incident, the smiles and happiness of the first duel. Also, the daily life of raising catnip grass. Finally, a Crimson Star medal was given as a gift. The most precious gift to his mother had been completed. Finally, only Panduola Senior is left. What does she like? What does she need? Dake suddenly realized that he really knew nothing about his senior. Just because of her appearance, he paid special attention to her. She was no different from those superficial nobles with fat brains. Let me think. 4th year magic engineering, top student, excellent grades, part-time librarian, raised a catnip grass. That's all? Dake leaned back in his chair and was in a daze for a while. The original intention of the deal with his senior was that she promised to guide the crafting of the fusion magic card. But in fact, in the spare time for these 2 weeks, Dake had been learning the prerequisite knowledge for crafting the zoo magic card, and he had not finished learning it. In this way, the research of Curse Cage and Fusion was naturally put on hold. The good news was that Advanced Magic Engineering Language, Resurrection Runes, was also within the scope of learning. So his mastery of the magic engineering language was getting deeper day by day, which was beneficial to the crafting of Curse Cage and Fusion. Fusion is temporarily out of the question, but Curse Cage can actually be tried. Also, since I'm free, I can craft 1 or 2 first-tier magic engineering fairies to fill the deck. Tomorrow is Sunday, I'll use one night to prepare. As for Senior's gift, I wonder if she's free next week? Once the decision was made, Dake showed a terrifying ability to take action. That night, he first reviewed the crafting steps of Curse Cage, and identified and familiarized himself with the various materials that he had prepared. The last and most important step was to rely on his own understanding, and use the magic engineering language to write his own unique magic incantation. Magic incantations were generally divided into general magic incantations and exclusive magic incantations, according to whether they were universal or not. Derived from this were the general magic incantation cards and exclusive magic incantation cards. Due to the crafting process of the magic incantation cards, most of the magic incantation cards belong to exclusive magic incantation cards because they contain the creator's imprint everywhere inside them. Only the creator himself could use them smoothly and freely. If he wanted to sell them on the market, he would need to go through generalization. Generalization was a more advanced crafting process that was very difficult to get involved in. So Dake could only write exclusive magic incantations at the moment. The exclusive limitation of exclusive magic incantations was mainly because the writing of magic incantations was not done one stroke at a time. It involved using one's own magic to let part of the magic engineering language that made up the magic incantation undergo natural evolution, so that the final magic incantation written would be compatible with the sorcerer's own magic. In short, it was very difficult. Until 1 o'clock in the evening, Dake had just finished writing the first step, but it was not perfect. However, the brain that was forcefully boosted by the apple juice was already overloaded, so he had to rest for the night. Sunday morning, 7 o'clock. A light drizzle floated outside the window. After Dake washed up, he temporarily put aside his morning exercise and directly began to further adjust and refine the spell cage, magic incantation. At about 7:30, the little devil beast came back with breakfast and today's morning paper. But he didn't stop until 8:30. He tried to empty his mind while eating, and then flipped through the Great Sage Daily. The Great Sage Daily, on the weekend, always had some big news to promote sales. This time the newspaper headline belonged to the Holy Church's twin paladins. The twin paladins in the photo were very young, and seemed to have graduated from the Holy Church's Mystic Institute last year. They were a pair of twin brother and sister. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and unparalleled handsome. The Holy Church seemed to have the intention to make them the flag of the Holy Church in the new century. Since they were still in the Institute, they had carried out a large-scale publicity campaign. This time in the newspaper, it was because the brother and sister worked together to eliminate a heretical cult. According to the newspaper, it was a terrorist cult that tried to resurrect demons on Christmas Day. As Christmas approached, there were more and more of these organizations. Humans always sought stability in chaos and conspired to create chaos in the midst of stability. The demons were indeed eliminated, but the demons with the demon bloodline still existed. Humans who were inclined to the demons also existed, and even the demon king had not died out. Just like a centipede that died but did not fall down. The demon race's reproduction was different from that of humans. They were oviparous, divided, spun, and even corrupted. It was just that the strength of the demon bloodline generally decreased by rank. The lower the rank, the weaker it was. In other words, the remaining low-ranked demons were not a big threat, but as long as there was one high-ranked demon remaining, it would be a disaster. And the Demon King was undoubtedly the pinnacle of the demon sequence. Once the Demon King was truly resurrected, it wouldn't take too long to revive the demons. If the Demon King here is Voldemort, then is it really a 7-ranked Demon King? Dake put down the newspaper and shook his head slightly. What bullsh *T Demon King, so what if it was resurrected? The 10 years it had been lying in the coffin could be said to be the rapid development period of the new era. Magical technology had exploded, and it was no longer the same as during the war. 10 years ago, the hero had to sacrifice himself to seal it. Now 10 years later, it might not even be able to withstand a single blow from the Valkyrie. In the original work, it was even eliminated by a hero's son who hadn't graduated yet. This showed how weak it was. As the saying went, knowledge was power. Unless it learned from others to control others, and focused on learning magical technology to become the new era's demon king, magical type, it wouldn't be much of a threat. In the past 2 years, the Holy Church had been promoting the demon king threat theory, and frequently released prophecies of the demon king's resurrection, just to let the Eagle faction take power. Dake saw this very clearly. After all, although he didn't know the process, he knew the ending. He knew that the final boss of the game was not the demon king, but the demon god. A demon king that wasn't even the final boss was just bullying a student. Hey wait, aren't I just a student? Dake fell into deep thought. Around 9:30 a.m., Dake resumed his research and continued to compile and refine the curse cage. It wasn't until 10:30 a.m. that he finally had a satisfactory result. He calmed down and finished his lunch before starting to refine the curse cage. Although the curse cage was a magic card, it needed to be compatible with the refining method of the magic elf card. Just like fusion, it was an extremely special magic card that had the foundation of the magic elven card. Using the curse cage, it could temporarily seal tame demons, golems, and other simulated life forms and use them as magic elf cards. The first half of refining the curse cage was basically like refining a magic elf card. It only started to change gradually in the second half. Because of the experience of refining the flicker curse, Dake didn't pull his pants down in the second half of the refining process. Therefore, learning was done step by step. If you wanted to eat until you were fat, you had to be fat to begin with. Considering that the refining materials for a curse cage required 1,500 credits, Dake was unprecedentedly serious and cautious. He spent a full 2 hours to prepare and another 1.5 hours to refine it. When he finally succeeded, even he felt that it was incredible. Success on the first try. This meant that his learning of the magic elf language was already at a high level among the second-year students. The completed curse cage was a magic card with a wooden cage on the card surface. There was a spell talisman on each side of the cage with a few key magic elf characters written on it. Dark picked up the curse cage and carefully looked through it several times. Only then did he raise his head with excitement and look around for Ibwa's figure. Until 5 minutes later, the little devil beast that had sneaked out was forcefully summoned back by the Academy card. Little devil beast. Dake shook the curse cage card as if he was showing off. From now on, you can be my magic elf and fight with me on the stage of the duelist. Are you happy? The little devil beast shook its head violently. Not bad. Dake narrowed his eyes. You're so happy that you're delirious. Then he suddenly activated the curse cage. A strong light shone and the base of the cage suddenly appeared under the little devil beast's feet. Then wooden railings fell from the sky and nailed to the base with a bang 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 sound. Then, a layer of wooden cover covered the top. Golden magic elf characters appeared on each surface of the wooden cage. Finally, a huge word curse was formed. The little devil beast was immediately locked in the curse cage, and then turned into light along with the curse cage, and went into the magic elf card in Dake's hand. The surface of the card quickly changed, and a world-famous painting, Little Devil Beast Locked in a Cage, was unearthed. Dake reached out his finger, poured magic power into it, and poked the cage on the surface of the card. The cage shook slightly and the little devil beast that was locked inside hugged its head with its wings and shrank to the corner of the cage. Dake couldn't help but laugh. Card name, Little Devil Beast. Type, Elf card. Level, Race Fiend. Attribute, Dark. Magic power, 100. Attack, 100. Defense, 100. Surekill skill, Small Dart. After turning into a magic elf card, the little devil beast could obtain a Surekill skill even if it didn't use Pride Eye. And with the advantage of having wings, it could fly into the sky and avoid most attacks. In the name of Dake Dimming, come out Little Devil Beast. With the completion of the usual summoning spell, the little devil beast turned into a solid body in the light. The little devil beast that appeared in the form of a normal magic elf for the first time flapped its wings and flew out. Dake grabbed its claws and hugged it in his arms and coaxed, "Be good. As long as you're good enough, I promise that I won't lock you in outside of the duel." The little devil beast, aha! 2-in-1 4,100 words. You're tuning into the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.